Please remember that this meeting of the CA Board of Directors is being live streamed. You can find tonight's agenda and background materials on the CA Board webpage. Links to these documents can also be found in the description section of our YouTube live stream for those who are watching this meeting there. If you're virtual, please mute your microphones unless speaking. If you're in the room, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Raise your hand to speak, and I'll record names in the order which I say them. If you're virtual, please use the chat feature. As we move through the meeting, I will introduce each item on the agenda. Before a vote is taken, I will restate a motion, as well as who motioned it and seconded. At any point you have trouble hearing me or any other board member, please say so. Tonight's timekeeper is Andy Stack. I will now call the roll. Dick?
Here.
Brian?
He's saying here, but he's.
I think you're on mute, Brian. Brian, I think you're on mute.
I've got it. Okay. Yes, here.
Thank you. Janet?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
Alan?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
Ginny?
Here.
Barry?
Here.
And I am here. We will now move on to resident speak out. I will call on you one by one in the order which you signed up. Individuals have 3 minutes to comment and groups have 5 minutes. Following remarks, the board will have a chance to ask questions. Please mute your microphones if you're not speaking. So, oh, wait a second. Okay. I think we need to start off the.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, there's one closed meeting. Okay, so. Okay. Before we do resident speak out, we do have an announcement of one closed meeting that occurred on May 9th via Google Meet. That was the Columbia Association Board of Directors Architectural Resource Committee. Members in attendance were Deb Bach, Karina Queso, Susan Sloan, and Carol McPhee. The reason was closed under HOA Section 11B1, 11.4, consultation with the staff personnel, consultants, and attorneys. The vote to close was 4-0-0. It started at 1:02 and ended at 2:33 May 9th. Now we move on to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion?
Discussion?
Right.
Yeah, I would like to add a piece. I guess it would be board votes 6A. We've had a request from a resident that's timely and really can't wait I guess it would have to be a waiver of our anti-nepotism policy. And given that the swim team season's about to start, if we wait another month, it'd be too late. I wouldn't normally request this, but the resident has made attempts, done everything, as far as I can tell, they ought to do to get satisfaction, and it hasn't happened. So I'll formally move that.
Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second it.
So I've got a question for Wes. This sounds like a personnel issue, and would that
So
require,
I'll address that.
would this require a closed meeting is my question.
So I just want to say that it is a human resource policy for personnel. The board has no authority over our personnel policies, according to both good governance practices as well as our own charter.
We have at the board level made waivers for this in the past, since I've been on the board, so it's been fairly recent.
You're just asking personnel. I'm just answering that question. Personnel.
And again, I would request, Wes, wouldn't this be a personnel issue and this would not be appropriate for an open meeting?
Well, I don't know what we're talking about. What do you want to discuss specific?
So,
We've had a request for the board to waive our anti-nepotism policy in a particular case of a young man who wants to coach his neighborhood swim team.
So if the issue is a waiver of the anti-nepotism policy, then we don't need to particularly discuss the individual person. So it'd be an issue of whether we're going to waive the policy. I don't see the need to close the meeting to do that.
Excuse me, Wes, would you mind either moving closer to the mic or move the mic closer to you? Thank you.
So I would just like to add, if I can may,
sure.
that waiving the policy only gets us so far, because then there are implications of that. And if you waive the policy, is there an expectation that a staffing change has to be made? So that would have to be resolved, and then the implications of that would flow down. So you could waive the policy, but that doesn't result in anything changing unless you decide to direct HR issues.
Yes, Andy? Or, yes, Alan?
I get your point, and yet if the reason why the person's been denied the position is the anti-nepotism policy, then if that policy gets moved out of the way, then I guess I would assume that another, what everyone would call it, adjudication or another look at the situation would have to be made absent that policy.
That's a very large leap
It is.
and a very large assumption that can't be discussed because it is a personnel issue, but that would be a very large assumption that waiving the nepotism policy resolves this issue.
Bill?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is a policy that, if it's within our abilities, we should look at. But the season starts in 4 days. To make a change and have to fire someone and reassign them to another team and get things done we are like at the last minute here, and I think the timing sucks. But I don't know if we can do anything at this time.
So it sounds like even if we waive this policy, there still wouldn't necessarily be any action to move people or to be able to reassign personnel at this point. And getting into a personnel issue, this could create the need for a closed meeting. But given that, I'll call the question.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just finish my thought. I apologize. I appreciate your input, but I just wanted to finish my sentence and say, I think the timing sucks, and it's at no fault necessarily of the folks that voiced this appeal. It's just the timing has sucked overall. So enough sucking, let's get on.
I'll call the roll. Dick?
Was it seconded? Oh, yes, it was.
Seconded.
I see, no.
Brian?
Yes.
Janet?
No.
Kevin?
No.
Alan?
Yes.
Bill?
No.
Andy?
No.
Ginny?
No.
Sherry?
No.
And I vote no. The motion fails. So,
Will call a question on the agenda?
yes. Are there any objections to the agenda unamended?
No.
The agenda passes. Now we move on to resident speak out. So individuals will have 3 minutes to speak, and groups will have 5 minutes to speak. If you're not speaking, please mute your microphones. So our first resident speak out is Clara Scholl. Clara, are you there?
Yes, I am. Let's see. Sorry about that. Okay, so first of all, I want to start by saying how much I value and appreciate everything that CA does for our community, and that I really appreciate the great lengths that Columbia Association takes to prevent conflicts of interest in our community. And I am here to provide a perspective on the CA policy that prevents 2 siblings from working as a head coach and assistant coach for the same swim team. And my observation is that this policy disproportionately penalizes younger siblings and families with more closely spaced spaced children and larger number of kids. And I've observed that this policy even drives families with larger numbers of children away from CA because their children are not allowed to work together, whereas at other pools they are. And of course, that's a specific isolated case, not related to the specifics of the personnel issue that came up here, but I just want to talk about it more broadly because it does impact our communities. And so a single blanket rule about family status cannot account for all the possible sources of favoritism or conflicts of interest amongst the range of close relationships that our teenagers have with each other. And preventing siblings from reporting to each other in these seasonal jobs arbitrarily singles out just one type of relationship where potential risk for disparate treatment is heightened while fragmenting local communities. So these kids working together, they've been friends since they were small children in some cases. Their parents might be dating each other, things beyond the scope, and there are policies against two employees dating each other, but there are many relationships beyond the scope of that that are not in the official rules. And so this is sort of arbitrary. And so I just want to add, when we say that a younger sibling can't be a coach on a team, like that sibling in one case has been babysitting children since they were like 1, 2 years old, and those kids really look up to that person in the neighborhood. And of course, we want to have these employees work at all of the different pools, but if that person goes to a different pool, they haven't had those sustained relationships in the community at that pool that they have had when they were a member of the swim team from age 4 and then started to babysit other kids. And so I'll stop here. I just want to pause and say that this is much broader than just a single personnel issue. It's something that impacts many, many families. And so I'll stop right there. You can move on to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank you. Next is Alexa Couch.
Good evening. My name is Alexia Couch, and I have been a Columbia Association member for over 16 years, a CNSL swim team parent for 11 years, and a former CNSL Dolphin team member for the Dolphin team manager for the past 7 years. My 2 children, who are 14 and 16, have been part of the Dolphins for over a decade, and we consider our swim team our summer pool family. Last year, my son was fortunate enough to be hired as a lifeguard for the Columbia Association and was selected to work at the Huntington Pool. This has been a goal of his since he was 10, so it was very exciting for him. He enjoyed it, continued lifeguarding at the swim center over the winter, and was promoted to a manager on duty for the summer in the Huntington, McGill's, and Dickinson cluster. However, I'm here to speak to you about the nepotism rule that CA currently has in place. My 14-year-old daughter wants to lifeguard for CA next summer. However, due to current rules in place, she would not be able to work in the same cluster as her brother, which means that one of them would need to leave the community of people they have gotten to know for the past 11 years because they both want the opportunity to work for your company. The beauty of CA and CNSL is that it creates a community where our children grow up and know the people and swimmers very well. However, with the current rules for seasonal employees, CA is giving the impression that they do not care about the community connections formed if there is more than one family member who wants to work at the same cluster of pools. To tell teenagers they can't work in the same cluster seems counterintuitive to the community that CA and CNSL foster. I understand the need to have a nepotism clause for the corporation where advancement is a concern. But for seasonal employees who want to work for the community pool, it seems unnecessary and unfair to teenagers who happen to be close in age and both want to work in a familiar setting. At all of the private pools in the area, including Hammond Park Pool, Watermont Pool, and Appleton Swim Clubs, siblings are not only allowed to work together, but are encouraged to apply for position as these pools want their community members to continue to work for the community that they've been a part of. I understand the concern about potential conflicts. However, that could be handled by CA's HR department if that becomes an issue. All clusters have at least 2 pools, with most having 3. Could siblings work in the same cluster but not assigned to work at the same pools at the same time? I know there has to be a solution to allow siblings to be able to both work in clusters of pools where they have grown up and established a sense of community. Thank you for your consideration and looking into this matter. I know several other families who are in this situation. I know there's a lifeguard shortage almost every summer, and I would hate for a rule like this to negatively affect CA members' willingness to work for your company. I know it affects several potential seasonal workers and appreciate you taking the time to look for a creative way to let everyone get the most out of their Columbia Association working experience in the community that they have grown up in. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you. Next on our list is Richard Briggs.
Good evening. First, I'd like to introduce my wife, Julia, who managed the Huntington Dolphins summer swim team for 6 seasons, our daughter, Georgia, who just finished her freshman year at University of Maryland and is an experienced swim instructor, and our son, Julian, a sophomore and outstanding student athlete at Hammond High School. Since January, we have been asking for CA to waive or change its anti-nepotism policy so that this summer our son Julian will be able to be an assistant coach for the Huntington Dolphins Columbia Neighborhood Swim League team, for which Georgia, as I noted, acts as head coach. I attended the 10 March Speak Out section and provided the board with the text of my 3-minute presentation as well, which again urged CA to reconsider its position, which we are convinced should not apply to Julian's situation or any such seasonal part-time positions, especially in the neighborhood swim league. I received no substantive response following that presentation. Our 2 teens are entering their 13th season with the Huntington Dolphins team. They are part of a core of perhaps 15 to 20, I'm throwing out a number, of our older swimmers who have built up the Dolphins over the past 12 seasons, from one of the smallest CNSL teams in the midst of a 6-year losing streak to a highly respected, highly enthusiastic, cohesive team that has doubled in size during that time. It is a great source of pride among our swimmers, their parents, and our neighbors with former Dolphin swimmers. Because of this, our kids, understandably, are excited to coach their team. We have a loyal group of parents who selflessly support the team each summer, cooking burgers, timing swimmers, passing out ribbons, etc. Our young adults, like so many Dolphin swimmers, highly value and cherish this, and this is another big reason why they want to coach their team. Last week, as directed by your website, I wrote CA Principal Ethics Officer Michael Anneton to formally request a waiver of CA's anti-nepotism policy, and yes, we'd like to see it changed as well. I have not received a response from the CAPEO or even an acknowledgement of my certified letter. Webster's defines nepotism as the unfair use of power in order to get jobs or other benefits for your family or friends. Clearly, our situation does not equate to nepotism. Georgia has no power to hire Julian as an assistant coach or even influence hiring. CA Aquatics makes all hiring decisions and provides oversight. Julian's motivation to coach is that he wants to continue to be involved with the team he's been participating in and helped coach last season as well informally. George and Julian do not benefit unduly or unfairly from working on the same team. As a family, we feel that it is extremely unfair not to allow Julian to coach the team just because his sister also coaches it. Both Georgia, an experienced instructor, and Julian, a top 40 Maryland swimmer in his age group, have strong coaching qualifications. In Julian's case, simply put, he is significantly more qualified to coach in terms of experience as a full-time swimmer for 10 years, dedication, and loyalty to his team. He normally practices twice daily with the team once school is out, mornings and evenings, and last year, as I mentioned, he worked informally with several of our younger swimmers. This type of dedication and enthusiasm should be
Thank you.
rewarded.
Thank you. That's time.
I need to add in closing that CA's proposed accommodation is not reasonable. We feel we are asking for a waiver to this policy, and we'd like to see the policy changed eventually. I'm deeply troubled that we have not.
Thank you. That's time. Do I have any questions? Thank you. Next, we have Melissa Villegas from Moms Demand Action, Howard County.
Hi, give me just a second to pop out of the car. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm a parent of 3. I'm in Dorsey Hall. I've been there for about 10 years. I'm active in the PTA. I'm a veteran and an active member of Moms Demand Action. And tonight, on behalf of Moms Demand Action, we are asking you to participate next week, June 3rd through the 5th, for our Wear Orange event, which is to raise awareness with national gun violence. It seems ill-fated timing that we had the events this week, but this has been something that's occurred since 2013. 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton was killed by gun violence 1 week after marching in President Obama's parade. Her friends chose orange as a way of honoring her with her favorite color, as well as the additional added significance that it's the color that hunters use to signify gun safety. Since 2013, businesses and communities have lit up in orange lights. They have put placards, wear orange, June 3rd through the 5th, and they try to spread awareness about how we can pass on gun safety. And it raises awareness and unites the community while also honoring survivors. Tonight, we are asking the board to take action with 2 measures. The first is to issue a proclamation on June 3rd, which has been sent forward to the board. Second, we ask you to light up. We ask you to light up the tennis center across from Longreach High School, given the recent gun violence in that area and its visibility. We feel that no symbol or action is too small, and although Uvalde may be thousands of miles away, we are all part of the same community. We know that we've been touched here in Howard County, and many of the parents and caregivers, communities feel for what is happening there as well. Please vote to issue the proclamation and to light up for Wear Orange. And last, thank you for your time tonight and all you do for our community to make us strong, healthy, resilient, and united to reduce gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Thank you. Next, we have Amy Bennett.
Okay. First, thank you for having me back. And I'd like to express my appreciation to the new village or the new Columbia Association board members and to thank those who are returning. I'm here tonight for one reason and one reason only. I am here to give an update on where the process is regarding the Lake Elkhorn Mitigation Bank. On Tuesday night, the CEO of Columbia Association indicated at a BOC meeting that we were in a holding pattern, just waiting for a decision. That could not be farther from the truth. I want to start off by reading to you a document that was received by WSSI, the contractor, on March 10th, 2022, from the Maryland Department of the Environment. That document summarizes in 11 single-spaced pages all of the issues with the Lake Elkhorn Mitigation Bank. What I'm going to read from now on is from that document. I will share this document with all board members following this meeting. I'm now going to be reading what the Maryland Department of the Environment sent to WSSI on March 10th. Because of time constraints, I'm only able to cover part of it. The document is organized in sections. It has a section on public comments, tree loss and wetlands impact, stormwater management, which are those are the areas I'm going to concentrate on. I am now reading from that document. Many Columbia Association residents are opposed to this project. It does not seem that CA has fully considered the desires of the community when proposing this street restoration. You, meaning WSSI, discussed having multiple public meetings to educate the community on this project. MDE received many negative comments related to this project. Many commenters would like more details on the project and be better engaged. There are also some misunderstandings about the project. For these reasons, MDE strongly recommends you work closely with the public throughout the process to develop a project that meets the needs of the community. There's more in that section, but I'm moving on to tree loss and wetland impact. Again, MDE is saying, this forest is very important to the community as it provides a great connection with wildlife. While it may not be the healthiest forest in Maryland, it still provides many important functions and values to the community and to the environment. For example, the Maryland Ornithological Society has reported 215 different bird species at Lake Elkhorn. There is understandable concern that extensive tree clearing will reduce these habitats for birds, insects, reptiles, plants, etc. Please consider and discuss in more details alternatives that would result in less impact to regulated resources and upland forests. There's a tremendous amount more in that section, but I have to move on. MDE is concerned about the potential for extensive upland tree loss and wetland impact.
Oh, time.
This concern is, sorry?
Was that 3 minutes or 5 minutes?
3 minutes, right?
I have 5 minutes.
Yeah, she's got 5 minutes.
Protect our screen.
Yeah,
And
she's
if you could
representing
tell
Protect Our Screen.
Okay.
She
Thank
gets
you.
5, yeah.
Sorry.
Could you tell me when I just have 1 minute left? I have to get to something very important.
Okay, thanks.
MDE is concerned about the potential for extensive upland tree loss and wetland impact. This concern is exacerbated by the fact it is in suburban residential setting. While we understand that the prospectus is preliminary and impacts to wetland and upland forests will be reduced through the design, the amount of proposed impact to those resources is very high. You, WSSI, mentioned that you will survey all trees 12 inches or greater and work to save as many of these as possible. Please note that, especially in an urban setting, smaller trees are also very important and should not be discounted.
1 minute.
1 minute?
Yes.
Additionally, this area has a high amount of deer, etc. This one is extremely important. Reach 1 has a narrow stream riparian area resulting in less work area to highly potential tree loss abutting backyards. I'm skipping some of it. It may be better suited for more limited stream bank stabilization, which may reduce local erosion while still protecting the trees. MDE requests that you remove this reach from the mitigation bank. I want to repeat that. MDE is requesting that WSSI remove Reach 1, which is from High Tor down to Jackson Pond. And then there's a whole lot more, and I'm sorry, but there's a whole section on stormwater management. CA should consider upland stormwater management retrofits that would improve the stream. I want to point out that the last line is, before moving forward with the draft instrument, MDE encourages you to meet with MDE and the Corps to discuss the main issues. We want to be sure that these issues can be addressed prior to moving forward with a detailed design. That was on March 10th. This should have been brought, in my opinion, this should have been brought to the board. This is a major issue that needs to be resolved. If you look, I strongly encourage you to read these 11 pages. This is scathing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I do.
Jenny?
Yeah, Ms. Bennett, do you, on that letter, do you know whether CA received a copy of that letter?
I have no.
Does it say CC'd or something like that?
No, this letter was sent to WSSI, and as the contractor works with Columbia Association, after all, this is 6 miles of our land, I'm assuming that this letter has been shared. I guess that's a better question for Lakey. Lakey, was this letter shared with you?
Well, I think it'd probably be more appropriate if we asked that question, which I'll do later under the president's comments. Or I guess we could ask it now. Was the letter shared with the staff?
So the letter was sent to WSSI. CA does not have a role in this letter.
Did CA receive the letter?
I would have to confirm whether we received a full copy of the letter. We were aware that MDE sent initial comments to WSSI. That's all it is. It's still, just like I said on Monday night, in an internal process. There is not a decision point. There is not a final determination. There are not official comments. These were internal comments that were sent to WSSI. WSSI told us they had received initial comments from MDE. That is what I know. I can If I'm being requested, I can check if we have a full copy of the letter.
Yeah.
But I want to say again, what I said on Monday is accurate. There is not a decision point in this process yet. MDE has not gotten back to WSSI, who is the applicant, not CA.
It's CA's land, and all I will say is that there was a decision point that MDE raised on March 10th, and that is we want to be sure that these issues can be addressed prior to moving forward with a detailed design. It is my opinion.
I think we got another question
Okay.
for you, though.
I'll stop.
Ellen?
Well, my question was sort of related to that, and it was a question I formulated before Lakey said what she said, so it may be a little bit moot. But Ms. Bennett, to your understanding, what's the time sensitivity here? I mean, is there, you'll have to forgive me, I'm new to the board, so I don't have all the ins and outs. Is this something that's a project that's already underway? Is this a project that bulldozers are about to start doing something? What's the
No, we were able to stop the bulldozers last August, and we are now 9 months into fighting this. But here's what's going to happen. WSSI is going to submit a revised proposal. That proposal will respond to the questions raised in the 11 pages. All I can tell you is, as a contracts manager for 20 years for the federal government, it is not possible that the CA's people are not aware of this letter and that it should have been brought to the board. This is a multi-million-dollar project affecting 6 miles of our property. And I just want to point out that MSDE is requesting that Reach One be pulled out. We have brought this to CA. They would not listen to us.
Do you have any question? Do we have any other questions? Dick?
Are you sending those 11 pages to the board?
Yes, I am. As soon as the board meeting's over tonight, I will send it to all members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep.
Lakey?
I do need to make a statement that there are some inaccuracies, or at least some, I would disagree with some of the characterization that Ms. Bennett has indicated. So I do think it's important to go on the record with that. I don't think that we have the time to have a back and forth. If the board wants to put it on the agenda for a later date, we can certainly have the sustainability team present again and provide the same information they provided in February. But I do want to state there are some characterizations that I would not agree with based on what my staff has told me.
And I guess I need to respond because that's a comment about me. I have tried in this meeting and in other meetings to read from official documents. That's what I have done. I have been clear when I am giving my own opinion. It is time for Columbia Association to start listening to the residents.
Thank you. By the way, one comment for Brian England. I can't actually see on the screen, so if you have a question, please just state it so. Next on our list is Sharon Boyce.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Boyce. My family moved to Columbia in 1969. Congratulations to all the returning and newly elected board members. As a resident, I welcome the new members, despite the last-minute decisions of a few at CA who cost us time and money to review and alter a decades-old tradition in our election process. I hope this new board will insist on inclusion, transparency, and openness from CA. I have come tonight to discuss the Lake Elkhorn project. The status of this project is of concern to several of our state senators and delegates, and even some federal elected officials. Contacts in their offices have reached out for updates from MDE and the Army Corps of Engineers. The latest that have come in the past month indicate the project is moving along through the review process, and it was still in the concept phase. The vendor is working through the joint permit application process, which is being done in conjunction with the mitigation bank review. The vendor hadn't submitted a mitigation banking instrument as of the last update, which will contain much more detail on the project and plans. Additionally, the vendor is planning on some community outreach to educate the residents and a few industry groups on the project over the summer, even though the public comment period has ended. It's my understanding they hope to have this wrapped up by the end of the summer for approval and permitting. Despite anything else you have been told by CA, the bottom line is once this project has been approved, there will be no turning back, no recourse. The Army Corps is not going to change their minds after this project has been permitted. I don't know why CA continues to suggest otherwise. I am asking for an immediate meeting on withdrawing from this project based on the fact that a previous board approved an easement without any real plans provided for 133 acres of woodland, wetland, forest, and our open space. The vendor proposed one plan to obtain a signature and start the permitting process. Now that they have been granted the easement, they're working on what they're really planning on doing with our open space, and they are not required to share this plan, and currently we are being denied the opportunity for additional public comment when it becomes available. This decision and the way it's been handled from the start is entirely unacceptable. Coming from the Homeowners Association, who solely exists for the residents. I know of a plan where we could have it all, a plan that would mitigate the stormwater runoff, provide biological uplift, enhance our quality of life, and preserve our forests. But we must have the time and opportunity to discuss it, and the only way to do that is to immediately withdraw from this easement and contract. I implore you to do the right thing for our community and our environment. I welcome your questions, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. Sharon, you mentioned withdrawing from the project, and you mentioned the Army Corps of Engineers. To your knowledge, who else is involved, and besides CA, on whose land would this project be done?
They're actually, according to the document that Amy was referring to, a few private lots that would be impacted by this project, that the contractor had been, it had been pointed out that they would require sign-offs from those homeowners. The problem here is that all of the hundreds of homes that sit adjacent to the project have not been required to sign off on this project. Typically on a project like this, all homeowners that are adjacent to the project would be required to sign off on it. Because this property is owned by CA, that there's been an exemption on that requirement.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, Ms. Boyes, I've got a question. You mentioned you've got a better way of doing it. Just briefly, give us an idea of what you mean when you say you've got a better way of doing it. What does it involve? What's missing from the CA evaluation?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question. We have to understand that the problem with this watershed starts at the Howard High School. And interestingly enough, this project doesn't propose to address any of that or even work in the area at the very top end of the stream where the headwaters begin. And it ends at the impoundment, the lake, with the dam. I mean, the simple answer is, and it's in those pages, and it was proposed as an option by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, that if we never want to dredge again, which is what the easement states is the purpose of this project, then we have to remove the dam. Now, of course, there's been a lot of opposition to that, and I'm not suggesting that we do that either. I'm saying that if we have a dam, there will need to be dredging, and we have to do the responsible thing and budget for that. And in fact, there was a ponds and lakes management plan that came out, I believe it was in 2009, that suggested that we put all of our ponds and lakes on a regular dredging schedule to keep the environmental and financial costs down. But we have not done that. So back to the question, this this watershed from Howard High School to Lake Elkhorn has over 100 street outfalls feeding into it. And this project doesn't do anything to address all of that stormwater blasting into it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to capture, collect, cool, and filter as much upland stormwater runoff as we possibly can, retain it where we can, and in places that are appropriate, have it rejoin the stream. This can all be done outside of the stream. If we stop blasting the stream banks and we collect the stormwater runoff that's warm, it has road salt, it has fertilizers in it, pet waste, oils, and we filter all that out and cool it before it rejoins the stream, we have seen that stream banks can self-recover in as little as 14 months when the stormwater stops blasting the banks.
Thank you.
And
Do we have any other questions?
I have a comment.
That's fine. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you.
I just wanted to again state that there are some characterizations of the project that I would disagree with based on the scientists and engineers on CA staff that have looked at this project. I also want to remind the board, particularly since there's some new members, that this project started in March of 2019 and the CA board in January of 2021, well before I was here, approved the easement. All of this is in the sustainability team memo that went out in February, and I resent again today so all the new members had it. But the sustainability team, the characterization of what Ms. Boyce was just saying about doing a lot more upstream would be a fantastic idea. That is county land and privately owned land. It's not CA land. CA has no control over any of those components. So I think that's just important to understand that CA's board is only deciding easements on CA land, not what is happening on other land. But the easement was approved in January 2021. So I'm just giving some context that I think is important to the conversation. And lastly, the scale and impact, certainly our scientists and engineers do not characterize it in the same way that Ms. Boyce is characterizing it.
Thank you. Do we have any other
With
questions?
all due respect, if I may, I don't know of any scientists or experts on the CA staff. I know that we have people on the Watershed Advisory Committee, but I don't know of any independent outside experts that do not have a financial interest at stake in this project who have reviewed it. And if they have, I would really appreciate if you would share the report. Secondly, may I remind you, we've already granted 133-acre easement, so I believe we have plenty of space to come up with these techniques that I'm describing. And thirdly, I don't appreciate you saying the mischaracterizations of the project. Again, I'm going off of facts and what I have been told. I have been studying this every day since last August.
Are there any other questions? Oh, I thought you had a question. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Sky Anderson.
Good evening. I'm Sky Anderson from Clary's Forest, and I'd like to comment on the previous meeting, which I viewed in real time, watched in its entirety later, and read an excellent detailed report of in the Meriwether Post, a local online blog. Neither Columbia nor Howard County has a local newspaper to cover Board of Ed meetings, county meetings, zoning board meetings, CA meetings, or village board meetings. This vacuum is partially the cause of the current lack of interest. Blogs and the almighty grapevine try to take up the slack, but they insert editorial comments throughout rather than just report the facts. I've lived here for over 30 years and I'm very active in the community, so I hear a lot of opinions and misunderstandings from a lot of people. In the past couple of weeks, the previous CA board meeting received top billing among Columbians, and it was not a good thing. One item was the election of the chair. I'm sure that the chair is very well qualified, and congratulations. But having been a CA rep for only 6 months does not demonstrate that to many residents of Columbia. The other candidate spoke eloquently of his aims for the coming year, but was not elected. The decision appears to have been made in advance. Also, one CA rep did not sign the ethics policy, a requirement. To the average resident, it makes no sense whatsoever that a rep was seated and permitted to vote and to become a liaison to a CA committee, all without fulfilling the requirement of signing the ethics policy. I've attended a handful of CA and county council meetings, but the previous CA meeting was memorable. A board of directors hires a manager who hires the staff. The CA board heard the expert advice of the CA general counsel and of the senior vice president, but subsequently proceeded to disregard their knowledge and expertise. I sincerely hope this will not become the norm. I encourage members of this board and all other boards to read the astute comments of your constituents on the Facebook blog, The Meriwether Post, and to strive for independence in your thinking and voting. We deserve no less from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Dick?
Scott, just a point of information. I have signed the ethics policies.
Thank you.
Do you have any further questions? And I will add one comment. Yes, I've only been on the board 6 months, but I am backed up by a fantastic team here. And that's what's really important. And thank you all, and I look forward to working with everyone in this room.
Thank you.
Last on our list is Claudia Pack.
Good comment.
My name is Claudia Pack, and my mother has arthritis and has used the pool at Columbia Gym for her pain management. Over the years, all went well until she has started developing rashes. We have received, she has received topical treatment from our physician for exposure to chlorine and moved her to the then so-called Haven on the Lake. The rashes were still developing, but were smaller. We found that exposure to saltwater pool does not cause her rashes from our visits elsewhere outside of Columbia. As we reside in Columbia and within the area of the association's property, we would like to request that one of the pools be converted to salt water. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Ellen?
I have a question, and you may not know, but I want to put it out there, and maybe Dan could follow up. My understanding is that at least one of our indoor pools uses a different chemical process than the others. And I don't know if that makes any difference to your mother's condition or if it's just another way of doing chlorine. But I was made aware some years ago.
Which pool is that?
I think it's the swim center, but I'm not sure about that.
Swim center.
But, you know, that's just my lay, what I've heard, that there are different processes. But
I'll have to look into it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. That concludes our resident speak out for tonight's meeting. To limit interruptions during board discussion and voting, all members of the general public will be now returned to the audience. This means you will now no longer be able to show your camera or unmute your audio, but you are more than welcome to stay on as an attendee and watch the remainder of this meeting. You can also watch a live stream on the CA live stream YouTube page. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. I'll now take a moment to allow staff to make this transition.
There's also no bar at the bottom of the screen.
That's interesting. Okay. see it's working. Okay. Next on our list is tonight's consent agenda. First thing on our consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 28th, 2022 Board of Directors meeting. The second item on our list is the approval of appointments to the Architectural Resource Committee. They include Deb Bach of the Columbia Association, Susan Sloan of Owen Brown Covenant Advisor, Karina Queso, Oakland Mills Covenant Advisor, and Carol McPhee, an at-large member. The third item on our list is the approval of the Hickory Ridge representative to the Senior Advisory Committee. And they're reappointing Clenita Greer. And last is the approval of the Hickory Ridge representative to the Watershed Committee. And reappointing Deborah Wessner.
Okay.
No objections. Consent agenda passes. Next is board votes. Proclamation for National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
Yeah. I think everybody, I'd like to move for approval. I think everybody has a copy of this, and we've heard testimony. And I don't know what more we can say other than if we pass this, perhaps a moment of silence, which Janet Loughran had suggested, and a lot of us think is appropriate, especially with what just happened Tuesday in Texas and the previous week in Buffalo. So I move for approval.
Second.
Second by Alan.
Seconded.
That's approval by, motion by Ginny, second by Alan. Are there any discussion?
I just wanted to mention that just over a month ago, I had a chance to sit down and talk with a young mother and her child who, because of a gun deal that went wrong in Wild Lake earlier this year, were affected by gun violence. And certainly this affects people broadly in the United States, but it also is something that's very real here. And it has been something very high on my agenda. And I'm happy to hear that we're going to be looking at this tonight.
Yeah.
Sherry?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you've said. And simply as citizens, this affects all of us in such a profound way. But I was going to ask whether it might be possible to respond further by getting a light. And what I was thinking, although it's been requested over by one of the high schools, I was wondering whether it might be possible to do something at the lakefront. Now, I often walk by the statues of the Rouse brothers, and I think that is so much a focal point, particularly this time of year when people are out and moving around that area. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Is that something that we can consider doing with an orange light to join with other organizations? I believe the hospital is doing something. I think it's a powerful statement that CA could make.
So I hope, given that I had sent a note out, we lit up the fountain in blue and yellow for the Ukraine starting a couple months ago, and we made a statement as CA yesterday on the incident, and Dennis's team was able to get the orange lights up, and it starts today. So we weren't waiting on the proclamation, but certainly happy to support, but it is the fountain at the lakefront. Yes, the team did it today.
Thank you.
Great.
Great.
Thank you,
Great.
Dennis.
Ellen?
What about the suggestion to light the tennis center? Is that within the realm of possibility?
We'll have to look into that. I can't speak to it. Coloring lights has everything to do with the type of lights and how they sit. So we had made it work on the fountain lights when we looked into it a couple months ago for Ukraine. So I'm happy to look at long reach. I can't commit, though, in this meeting whether we can do it.
Any further questions or comments? So I will now call the roll. Dick?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I am yes. The motion passes.
Point of information, is this a new policy, a new procedure that we always call the roll for every vote, or how is that, I'm just curious, how is that decided?
That's how it shows up in the minutes.
This is a board vote, and due to the gravity of current events and the seriousness of this agenda item, I think it's appropriate to call the roll so that everyone is on record.
I agree.
And in that light,
I wasn't complaining, but it was different. So.
yeah, it's a little different, but I think due to what's happened and the seriousness, it's appropriate to call the roll. And
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one other quick thing. Oakland Mills Village Board changed the resolution so it reads like a village board or village community association, but they passed this Tuesday night. You may want to think about your board doing the same thing, maybe through email. I don't know if they actually need a public hearing on it or not, but that we could give you the wording of what Oakland Mills Village Board did. The other, just thank you so much for being willing to hear this and amend the agenda in order to hear this tonight. Thank you. I wonder if we could have a moment of silence for all the victims.
Certainly. Thank you. Now we'll have a moment of silence for the victims of the Robb Elementary School shooting and also the Tops Friendly Market shooting. Thank you. Next on our agenda is board discussion, presentations from the FY22 advisory committees. Before we begin, I would like Lakey to give a brief overview of what the advisory committees are and how they benefit CI.
So this is the annual report out, and I did want to just give quick context since we just recently made some changes to the advisory committee. As a reminder, the advisory committees are reporting out on FY22, so our immediately closed fiscal year and then getting ready for our new fiscal year. So there are some slight changes to the advisory committees as to how the board is liaising with them, though again, all board meetings, all committee meetings, all board members are always welcome to attend, as are often general members of the general public. So the role of advisory committees, frankly, widely varies depending on the advisory committee itself. So we have 11 that have existed, and some are more robust and larger than others, but we certainly appreciate and value the dedicated group of volunteers that participate in all of them. There are some that we would characterize as what we call the user group, so particularly aquatics, golf, health and fitness, and tennis, that really are directly our members or users of our programs that have a lot of a feedback cycle with staff, and that has been very significant for our programs and changes we've made. And the liaising with the board in those committees has largely been in more of an awareness and bringing perhaps issues from those committees to the board as appropriate. Whereas we have what we were calling topic-focused advisory committees, and that would be the Art, Climate and Sustainability, International Multicultural Programs, and Watershed Advisory. So two of those actually have a appointment process and an application process, and there are certain qualifications around the climate and sustainability and watershed. What is different about those, I would say, is that they are very driven and actually deliver, in some cases, projects and programs and have an oversight. So for instance, our climate vulnerability assessment that I'm sure would be mentioned tonight, or with our international program, often those are volunteers that are helping, say, on our sister cities programs or those kind of things. So I would characterize those as a different level of engagement. And then lastly, we have what we call community engagement groups, which would be the millennial, senior, and teen and middle school. So these are really groups of people that have a specific perspective, particularly around, in this case, really demographic that is driven more by their age category. And these have had differing levels of involvement, which I think is something we definitely want to work on in terms of the millennial and the teen and middle school in particular. And we are in the process of contemplating how we can engage with them differently to be more effective. I know that the Millennial Advisory Committee in particular came out of, for instance, a project that CA conducted, and the board had a desire to really hear from millennials, and that was what the impetus of creating that committee, whereas some of our user group committees have literally been in place for decades. So there's kind of a wide variety, but Eric had asked me to just give an overview. In closing, each of the advisory committees that are reporting tonight will follow the same format for the presentation. We started it last year, and there was very positive feedback both from the board, but also from the advisory committee as well as CA staff. So we're trying to tease out key points and keep it succinct, where we're not trying to report every single thing that has happened. But I do want to highlight that one of the key things we ask is, how can the board better serve you, and what do you need from the board? So I just ask that we all listen closely, particularly that portion of the presentation, because we have the commitment to make the advisory committees more effective. Certainly our engagement in that is very important.
Thank you. So our first presentation is the Aquatics Committee, and the presenter is Erica Kusmal.
Yeah, I hope you are all seeing my screen at this point in time. Hi, this is Eric. Thank you for having me. So I'm representing the Association's Aquatics Committee, and let's see. Our mission statement is to provide input to the Columbia Association on policies and programs concerning the operations of and suggested improvements to CA's indoor and outdoor aquatics facilities and activities. I think the biggest thing that we bring is, as members who are out enjoying all of the different groups that use aquatics, we wind up being a big liaison between their members that are using the CA aquatics and the aquatic staff, because they won't always say something to the staff. They might feel more comfortable saying something to us, and then we can bring some concerns they might want to bring up that they don't feel comfortable bringing up to a staff member. So throughout time, I think that's the biggest thing that we've really brought. We've brought those things that people might not say in public, but say in their private groups that we're all part of, to the Aquatics Committee, and try to work with the staff to get things changed in a positive light. Our biggest accomplishments, we were working, actually it was really nice, we worked with Eric, thank you Eric, last year a little bit in our meetings about what are some things we could do to make the CA aquatics stuff more, our programming more available and out there to the public. We threw around a lot of ideas, including any Columbia card holders getting some maybe passes that they could use at any given times or whatever to allow them to have more access to the pools. And the aquatic staff put that into play and made it happen for this year, which was really great. We had worked hard on trying to make a proposal for a new pool that didn't go through. So we've spent a lot of time, especially with COVID, trying to work with the aquatic staff to talk about, hey, can we move things in different pools? Can we do the programs in a different light? Can we change the times a little? What things can we do to make things happen? And we've really come up with a schedule working with Marty and his staff that we feel maximizes the use of all the 5 indoor pools in the non-summer season. Doesn't seem to have much trouble finding a pool to do things in the summer season. Got plenty of pools in Columbia. Thank you, everybody. two biggest priorities for this coming year. We feel like we need to recruit more members so we can get a broader scope and a better perspective of all the diverse socioeconomic and utilization backgrounds of our community, because right now we don't feel like the board is fully representative of our community, and we're trying to grow that. And that's been one of our big goals. And one of the things we've been working with is to try to find ways that we can better find out what the community wants of us and aquatics, so that we can then help guide the aquatics team with what we're hearing from the community. The opportunities for the CA board to help us. We would like to get a little more direction at times of what the board does expect from a group like us, what things they might want to know, and so that's something the board could help us with. We felt it was useful occasionally having a board member to describe something to us or tell us that your perspective in some of our meetings that helped us to strategize and solve some of the operational level programming issues that the board seems to see as a barrier. And I go back to the cards for Columbia card holders and the passes to be able to give them more access to the pools around their schedule. Opportunities for the board to really better serve us. We like to think that we work with as a committee, we work with the staff to come up with some suggestions and things around improvements and around, well, again, when we asked for a new pool, and we just asked that the new board and the old members that are returning that have been reelected, please just keep giving consideration to the ideas that we put forth with the staff about the things that need to be done on the aquatics things. And we did find it useful to have a board member willing to talk with us and tell us some of the perspectives. So where possible, we would certainly still be happy and appreciate a member of the board being at some of our meetings a year. Doesn't have to be everyone, but some, so when we have issues we want to talk about with them, they're easily accessible to us. I want to say thank you. Appreciate your time. I hope I didn't take too long. I'd like to keep things moving along.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure working with you.
Yeah.
Ginny?
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you very much. I served as the board liaison about 3 years ago, and it's a fun committee to work with. So lifeguard status, could you give us an update on that?
From the last meeting we had, my impression is that all the pools are supposed to be open at this point in time, and that I know there's still some training that has to go on with some of the lifeguards. So I don't know where that is with all the pools all the time, full time, but I believe that Marty had enough lifeguards, he said, to open all the pools for at least some of the time that they're normally open for the year at this point.
Okay, thank you. Another quick question on one of your charges, first bullet, diversity.
Yes.
Strive to ensure the makeup of the committee represents the diversity of the Columbia community. How do you propose going about doing that, and what do you mean by diversity?
Well, I think just about anything. When you look around the room, almost all of us either have people or are people who are involved in the CNSL or the Clippers or the senior swim program or the aqua fitness group. And I think what I want to see at least is some younger faces in that crowd that just are actually out trying to enjoy the pools, not necessarily about a swim team or a particular activity at the pool. What I'd sit there and say is when you talk about a background, and I don't know a better way to say it, I think we are lacking in any sort of cultural diversity. It is almost all white toast, plain old white American people sitting on that committee. And so one of the things we actually talked about doing this year was going to the all-city meet, actually having a table, because I know there's people out there that I talk to occasionally at the pool, and I say, hey, I'm on the board, I'd like to get your thoughts on something. And they're like, we have an aquatics board, and they don't even know what that advisory committee is. And so we're gonna actually have a table. We're gonna set it up, and we're gonna man it through the CNSL championship weekend, all city meet at the end of the season, so that hopefully people will be aware that this thing is out there. It's still only pandering to that particular crowd, but hopefully get some younger people with families that might have some other perspectives also. So that's really what we're looking for, is to just try to get a better representation of the committee, of the community as a whole.
Okay, another quick thing you might want to look at is one of the concerns in our area is the apartments and lower income individuals that are not using the pools. So we've been trying a lot more outreach there, and maybe that's something you could work on or give us some ideas on. And the last thing is, what I hear you saying is you really like the idea of a board liaison, or maybe it was just Eric's personality.
I have always enjoyed the board perspective at our meetings, because sometimes you guys are privy to information in the background that we don't necessarily know.
Yes, I guess since it's no longer required, I don't know how we're going to achieve that, but
yeah, right. No, right. I don't. And maybe when there is an issue or something, we can reach out and ask the board to send somebody.
I will say I tried to provide the perspective of a father of a 3-year-old. Alan.
Yeah, this is Alan. Unless my medium-term memory is wrong, I'm going to be the liaison, so you can always reach out to me, and my intention is to be...
Not to the aquatics.
Not to the aquatics.
We don't have aquatics, tennis, golf, and health and fitness no longer have board members.
Well, I'll try. You can always reach out to me anyway.
I appreciate that, Alan. Thank you so very much.
And say the first one.
Dick?
Hi. Well, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To your knowledge, you talk about in your proposed charge to monitor the progress of the aquatics master plan. To your knowledge, when was that last fully updated, and how long is it supposed to last?
I think the master plan, almost all of the things in the previous master plan are accomplished. The last thing that I remember being left on it was trying to get a new aquatics center, and even if there was any hope of that a couple of years ago, the financial issues with COVID, I'm pretty sure, have made it not likely anytime soon.
So really, this year would be the year to create a new...
year to kind of brainstorm what's the long-term goals, right?
And you preempted me also on, which I like, on the reaching out to the community, and I would suggest that would be, in addition to where competitive swimmers come, why not figure out a way to have a presence at various pools throughout the summer and get people's opinions, so get more data. I'm done.
Thank you. Sounds like we have a new unofficial liaison. Dick.
I'm sure I'll have to fight Bill for it.
Dick.
If you were here during the resident speak out, you probably heard we had an issue about some of our personnel policies. I wonder if you guys would want to consider, are there things that are different about the summer program, about the lifeguard program, that we should be aware of and maybe take into consideration in the future about, maybe some things don't apply in some cases, but I'd like to get your point of view on that.
I don't believe you probably want my point of view on that, because I have a personal stake in this. And so I have sent a letter to all of you, actually, stating my personal opinion. And from the committee, I'm not sure that HR policy is any of our expertises. And so I would not necessarily want to, as a person on that committee, suggest that we should weigh in on HR policies.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
I mean, if you're directing us to, we can certainly broach it at the meeting, I'm sure, but I'm not sure that's something we that's a thing we want to get into, is HR policy. I don't think that's something we're designed to deal with.
So,
thank you. Bill?
Thank you. Just really quick, a point of information. I believe the master plan was done in 2013, so it's been about a decade. since the Aquatics Master Plan was completed. And also as a former CAC committee chair, Ginny, Alan, you were both great as a liaison also. I just wanted to share the love to everybody. Eric, thank you for your hard work as leading up that committee. I know that it can be a tough job with the group you got there. But one of the things that regularly comes up is affordability of memberships for the pools. And I was wondering, as a board, what can we do to help the Aquatics Committee brainstorm, develop, come up with alternative plans or better ways to meet the challenge of affordability to get people in the door there? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess I wouldn't want to speak on the committee as a whole without discussing that with everybody. That if you said, "Hey, what would your ideal scenario look like from a standpoint for accessibility?" and hey, in your ideal world, what would you look to do for charges or design of a plan of charges? I'd want to bring that back to the committee and maybe toss that around a little bit to have a discussion and see what we could come up with. Because I know we've tossed that idea around a little bit. But I also know that some of that plays into the fit and play and other memberships that already exist. And so I'd rather take a little bit more of a look with that with the whole crew, because I think the crew does work together to come up with our best solutions as a group.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, Brian.
Eric, I've got a question.
Brian.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, have I got the floor?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes, Eric.
Okay. Yeah, Eric, I just, one of the things I felt that when we got the testimony tonight from the family members, there were certain issues that came up, not dealing with the actual policy, but the actual circumstances where children wanted to grow up and be on the streets, teams, in their neighborhoods and things like this. Is it possible that the Aquatics Board could look into those issues, not the policy making of the CA Board, but the actual, are there a significant number of people that have issues where they've got siblings that need to work together? Is that particular narrow focus something that you could review?
I don't know, but I'm certainly happy to take it back and see what I can do. And then if we do find something interesting about that, certainly do that. I will tell you that, since you brought it up, on the personal level, I have 3 children, all who swim on a swim team, all who are intending to be lifeguards and maybe someday be coaches. And to me, I'm like, hey guys, you might have to go to a different pool. You might have to go to a different team. And we have had on our swim team siblings come over and coach at our swim team, and to the point of family and aquatics and the whole 9 yards, I feel as though the CNSL as a whole entire community is such a community that I don't feel like people are alienated when they go to a new team to be a coach. I understand the longing to be with the people you've been around, but I don't know that I see that as a necessity to be a good coach. If you're a good coach and you want to coach, go coach.
Okay. So what I was really referring to is the whole.
Could we see how many people that's really affecting? Correct? Is that what you're looking for? Yes.
To see if it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Sure. I can. I can ask people to talk. I can ask the group to ask around and see if that's really a bigger issue than just this one time, or if this is a one-time sort of issue. Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And assuming there are no other questions, thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. The second presentation is climate change, and the presenter is Tim Latimer.
Good evening. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chair, for inviting us to speak with you all this evening. And I'm going to count on my colleague, Jeremy Scharfenberg, to run the slides for us here. Thank you, Jeremy. And before I start on the presentation, first of all, just as a resident of Long Reach Village and Columbia, I just want to say thank you to the board for the decision you took tonight to approve your statement on gun violence. That's really a hugely important issue for our community, so very much appreciate that. Just very quickly, I'll go through the slides and happy to answer any questions. Don't want to keep you here all night. Jeremy, maybe we can go to the next slide, please. First of all, just to recap, for those of you who are new to the board, our committee was created, I believe it was back in 2018, And really, our mission is to support CA in improving its environmental sustainability, and also with a particular focus on climate change mitigation and climate adaptation and resiliency. I would say that the Columbia Association has done a fantastic job over the last decade or so in moving toward clean energy and energy efficiency, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and that's all to the good. And there's always, of course, more that can be done. But I just want to give a shout out to the team at CA for the great work that Jeremy and others have been doing. On the latter point about focusing on climate change, adaptation, and resiliency, one of the things that we wanted to do was one, to do a climate vulnerability assessment of Columbia to look at where there might be some particular areas of concern, and also to push the dialogue in Columbia and more broadly in Howard County around those issues. Because when we talk about climate change, people often think about the fact that we are seeing increasingly intense storm events, heavier downpours, and that sort of thing. We're also seeing more prolonged heat waves, which have a tremendous impact on public health. So this really is a serious public health matter. So if we can go to the next slide, please. A couple of highlights just from the past year. With this board's support and the great support of CA staff, we had brought on help with Michael Baker International to help us in developing a geographic information system tool, GIS tool, called a story map, which is really sort of the underpinnings of the climate vulnerability assessment. And I think some of you attended the town hall meeting that we had in late January to roll this information out, to go over some of the findings in this. And this is really at kind of a 30,000-foot level, but an opportunity for us to look at Columbia across the board, and with this GIS tool, be able to identify particular areas of concern, even within particular villages and neighborhoods. We did a workshop, a little workshop on March the 5th with residents in Wild Lake. And that's really sort of the starting point for us, because we wanted to use this tool as a way to engage with the community and start getting on the ground feedback from folks about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, what their concerns are. And the information in the GIS tool can help illustrate that, but we can also build out that information to identify things that might not have shown up in the technical analysis that initially went into the climate vulnerability assessment. So that's one of the highlights from the past year. The second thing, let's go to the next slide, please. I just want to highlight the work done by our folks that were working with the Yards Alive program in Oakland Mills to promote regenerative landscaping. And want to give a shout out to Catherine McCarter from our committee, who you see pictured in the lower left-hand side there. In fact, the Yards Alive program in Oakland Mills has done a tremendous amount of work to get the word out in the community that we can make our yards more environmentally friendly and appealing. And they had not only just briefings that they did, for example, with a low-impact landscaping webinar for the community cares groups in Columbia. They held a Yards Alive tour just last Sunday. Some of you may have participated in that and being able to visit some of the homes where residents have done some great work in their yards to show that we can have more landscaping conditions. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of the past year of a couple of our highlights. Maybe we can just go to the next slide, please. So for the coming year, there's a couple of things we are wanting to highlight here. One is we want to build on the climate vulnerability assessment, engage with additional groups and villages. And really, we put this out there at the town hall meeting and have basically encouraged folks from different villages, if you are interested, we are happy to come and get with you and look at this tool and do kind of a drill down on what your village conditions may be like. but it really has to be sort of a bottom-up process. We can't do it all for all of the villages ourselves, but we are certainly happy to help, like any of the CARES groups or others that want to take this tool and maybe run with it. And we also want to engage more with specific slices of the community that often are not at the table or as a part of these conversations. And we want to be intentional about reaching out to faith groups and other community groups that aren't typically considered when we do these kinds of activities. So that's our hope for the coming year, among other things. The other thing I would mention is we had intended this effort to also, as I mentioned at the outset, to stimulate the conversation more broadly, even beyond Columbia. And I'm happy to note that we've been in really good conversations with the County Environmental Sustainability Board, and I think through them, the county has now launched an update of its climate action plan aimed at 2030, and climate vulnerability is an important part of that effort. So we intend to be liaising with them also so that the resources we've developed with this information tool can help feed into that analysis, and that we too can also benefit from what the county is doing. Secondly, for the coming year, our regenerative landscaping team wants to continue with its Yards Alive program and do additional plant shares. This past year, they gave away some 400 to 500 native plants to residents and had an opportunity to engage them to talk about regenerative landscaping practices. And we want to do more of that. And this year, do an edible plant share. Do more yard tours, and also expand the social media presence of the team. They've got a Facebook group with a couple hundred folks, and I think they are looking to expand that. And that's also something that we are looking to do with our community engagement more broadly, is to boost the profile of the work that Columbia is doing. So those are highlights for the coming year. And I just want to, again, say thank you to the board for your support. And thank you to my colleagues on the committee for all of their great efforts over the past year as volunteers dedicating their time to help make this happen. So happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank Jenny for being the board liaison to this committee.
Thank you.
Janet.
Hi, Tim.
Absolutely. I just want to give a shout out to her. She has been fantastic. She's an integral part of our committee. I don't know what we would do without her.
The pay is great, Tim.
Janet.
Hi, Tim. I was curious if the Yards Alive program includes covenant recommendations for villages, since some of those things aren't allowed by covenants within certain villages.
Yeah, and I'll invite my colleagues who might be monitoring this to remind me, but I know that there was an effort to look at covenants, and we provided some input and feedback to that, because there are some variabilities, and my memory's a little hazy right now. That comes with my age, I suppose, but I seem to recall it was about 8 or 9 months ago that we provided some feedback to a group that was looking at providing more specific recommendations on covenant issues.
Sherry?
Yeah, just as a point of information, we may hear more about that from the watershed folks, because I know that there are people who will be presenting and talking about groups that are working on making recommendations. I think they appeared at our village board, and I think they are going around and presenting to the villages. So I think that'll come up, but jog me when that does.
Any further questions?
Yes.
Bill?
This is Brian.
Sorry.
Let Brian
Bill, then
first.
Brian, then Bill.
Okay. Yeah, Tim, I appreciate what your committee's doing. It's really wonderful. I wondered whether this regenerated landscaping, whether that extends to open space land as well, whether you advise and work with staff for doing this in the whole of the open space of Columbia.
I think the conversations on these issues, actually, we began with open space staff a couple of years ago, and I know they've been doing some things to strengthen CA's practices in that area. This particular effort has been focused more on encouraging residents to sort of take up the mantle, if you will, and demonstrate that you can have a beautiful yard have it be more environmentally sustainable and suitable for the environment and the climate. And I know our team is also, I think, has worked really well with the Oakland Mills Board, and I think they've been getting some support from that board for a new initiative related to the cul-de-sac areas. So I think it's an ongoing endeavor, and I know that the folks on the Yards Alive team would welcome any further opportunities to engage with CA's open space staff on this stuff.
Thank you.
Bill?
All right. Hi, Mr. Latimer. Bill Santos from Wild Lake. Thank you for volunteering and serving on this committee. I was looking at your submittal here that we got as far as recommendations for the CA board, and half of them have to do with stormwater or flood insurance or water flow. Yep. And I'm just, I hesitate to ask the question, who's responsible for water flow? Because really the answer is everybody. But I think with the Watershed Committee and the Sustainability Committee both kind of angling towards this part of the issue, have you guys coordinated in any way? Is there any duplication that we should be concerned about? Is that something that's part of your function there?
Well, part of our function or part of our mandate is to coordinate, and I'm happy to report that 2 of the members of our committee also serve on the Watershed Advisory Committee, John Klein and Bob Marietta. We've talked with the chair and other members of the Watershed Advisory Committee over the last couple of years. So hopefully what you're seeing from us is mutually reinforcing, not duplicative. And I would say that those recommendations came out of the engagement that we had, for example, at the workshop we did with folks in Wild Lake. I mean, we heard a lot from folks about just some frustration that sometimes they feel like they're trying to resolve some issues in their particular neck of the woods, and they feel like sometimes the county and the Columbia Association sort of point the finger at the other and say, well, that's their facility or that's their infrastructure. So I think part of it is just to try to remind ourselves that it's important to stay coordinated and make sure those lines of communication are open between the county and CA on these things so that the residents don't feel like they're just getting a runaround.
Yeah.
I was just going to say on the other thing, we understand that an organization or a community that engages in their community rating system program could be eligible for that community could be eligible for getting a discount on their flood insurance.
Yeah. I'm well aware of the concerns in Wild Lake. I live with them daily myself, so thank you for mentioning this. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I just have a comment.
Oh, one comment.
Yeah. Just for the board's benefit, Tim, the Yards Alive has expanded to the cul-de-sacs, as you said. They're taking on 2 this year. They actually have a lot of master gardeners on our committee and have actually designed something, and the neighborhood has gotten involved, and all intergenerational project, and they're planting, and it's just phenomenal experience. And that's county land, but the county doesn't seem to mind because they don't pay attention to the cul-de-sacs anyway. So it looks like it's going to be very successful.
Thanks. Thank you. You have a response? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next up is the Columbia Arts Center. It's Lynn
Faircop.
Faircop, sorry.
I thought I would help you out with that.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And hello to everyone there. Briefly, I'm going to be just addressing the 4 questions that were put out to us at the Arts Center. Just so you know, we have 13 members on our committee. That includes Liz Henze, our art director and staff liaison, and Janet Evans, who was our CA board liaison. For our 2 most impactful accomplishments for Columbia in the last year were increased student programming and increased event programming. Columbia Arts Center expanded programming in its ceramics, glass, and painting departments to include offerings for all levels of experience. All 3 departments now include beginning, intermediate, and advanced programs. With the addition of 2 new electric kilns, hooray, the capacity for quicker turnaround of kiln firings has dramatically improved efficiency of student work outcomes. This major improvement has enabled the ceramics department to expand classes and workshop options, realizing a total of 316 students participating between May 1st, 21 and April 30th, 22, including teens and adults. Our second most impactful accomplishment is increased event programming. FY22 marked the 12th year for Blossoms of Hope, with 54 local artists participating. This much-loved annual show raises awareness as well as funds for the Claudia Mayer Tina Broccolino Cancer Research Center at Howard County General Hospital. The reception and juror award ceremony hosted 75 people in attendance. During the run of the show, from April 7th to the 24th, 320 visitors viewed the show, in addition to 4 field trip groups from several 55-plus centers and the ARC of Howard County. The show raised approximately $750 in proceeds from a portion of entry fees and art sales. In addition to this major event, 5 additional in-house exhibit shows were held, and the center staff, along with the advisory committee members, contributed 3 community outreach events. So number 2 question, what are the 2 biggest priorities for your advisory committee for this current year? So they are facility reorganization and event support. With regard to facility reorganization, the advisory committee is making it a priority to assist the small team at the center with reorganization of its studios and storage spaces. These efforts are helping the center offer programs in more spacious, clean, and aesthetically pleasing rooms with expanded enrollment. It also enables the Art Center team to make more efficient use of its art materials and inventories of supplies. The center is starting to look brighter and more welcoming every day. And B, event support. The advisory committee members intend to have an expanded role of support at center events and receptions, as well as community outreach efforts. Members will be visible volunteering at events such as Art Reach in Long Reach during this first week of June coming up, Lake Fest, a 3-day event at Lake Kittamuckundy, and the Independent Arts and Film Festival in Long Reach in July, to name a few. This support helps the center team with coverage and promotion of its offerings to the community. 3, identify any important opportunities for the CA board to better benefit from your advisory committee skills. Well, we invite members of the CA board to come and attend the many offerings of the center, including exhibits, classes, and events. Advisory committee members are often seen in the center working on their own art projects and classes or just dropping in to visit the staff. I, for one, am there almost every week doing ceramics, so you can find me there. Prior to COVID, we had a plentiful and varied menu of exhibits, live events, speaker series, etc., and hope to revive them in the future. Please come and experience this gem of an art center. Attending our committee meetings would also provide an opportunity to get to know more about each member's skill set and what we bring to the table. Identify any opportunities for the CA board to better serve our committee. Get to know the Art Center. That's my advice, and become more familiar with its offering and its members. I know there are some new members on the board this year. Please, please, please come visit. We invite you to come take a sampling workshop, attend a few events, talk to the team, talk to the students, attend one of the committee meetings, and see why we feel so strongly that the center is an integral part of our community. I have just a few closing remarks. 5 devoted staff members have held the Art Center together during the pandemic closings and subsequent openings. They have tirelessly devoted many hours to keeping the Art Center going because they believe in its value. We need them to stay on, continue to provide opportunities for our students, and develop even better ways to run our programs. They are essential for the center, and we ask for your continued support to them. The committee would also like to thank our board liaison, Janet Evans, for her knowledge and guidance as our liaison to the board over the past years. She's been a valued advocate for and a resource to us, attending all of our committee meetings and so many of our events. Thank you, Janet. And a big thank you for the new kilns, my biggie. I only wish you could have all seen the delight and gratitude on the faces of the staff and ceramic students as the kilns were delivered and put into use. We so appreciate them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. And thank you, Janet, for serving on this committee. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, quick one.
Jenny?
Yeah, thank you for all you and the staff are doing and the committee. There's a number C on your report when you're talking about additional staff. It's not clear to me whether you're asking for additional staff or then it says you are excited that there are plans underway to bring on more team members. It's like it's happening right now. So could you clarify?
Well, this report is reflective of FY22. As I understand it, there have been more staff is coming on board. So we are very thankful for that. Very thankful. It's much needed.
Bill?
Good evening. As a new member, I wanted to say thank you for all the work you guys have done there. I appreciate it. I did have a question, though. In the first two committees that we've heard from, we had an aquatics master plan, we had a climate vulnerability plan. Would it benefit the Arts Center and the Arts Committee if the board asked and chartered an arts master plan looking forward, you know, what the arts community should be doing in 5, 10, 15 years? Or would that just be a lot of bureaucracy that wouldn't get looked at much? What do you think?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, that's a hard thing to plan for, I think, in art, because I think with our growing community, I think that with the amount of better publicity for the Arts Center, I think that we're going to continue to grow. It's been a slow start, you know, with COVID. There have been a lot of closings. We're operating classes. People are together. And we have to be cautious. But I think that's a wonderful idea. Now, I have to tell you, I'm sort of new at this. So would the board work with us to do something like that?
I don't think that we would provide direct input, but I think we could, as a board, find a way to clear the path so that we could get that done, get the funding, get the advertising, you know, those kind of things done. I'm speaking. I'm a new member. I'm speaking off the top of my head. I don't want to commit anything that we're not.
I think a lot of. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think a lot of that is already in play. Okay. You know, Liz Henze, who is the most incredible director. I've never seen anybody be so positive in sometimes areas where I would have just like been crying. So she manages to hold the center together in a very positive manner. She gets lots of support from staff. So right now, you know, we're in the process of building back from where we came. You know, I mean, when the Art Center shut down, I thought it was like the end of my life. You know, I love honestly, I mean, making pottery is something that I love to do. So can you imagine, I'm a nurse and this is a hobby. Can you imagine for some of the people who were there who do this even more than I do, how they must have felt. So we're slowly building back. I think we're on a pretty good track, but if Liz and staff think that there's a need for it, I think that's where the emphasis for a plan needs to go.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and that was really going to be my suggestion. Perhaps that's something that your committee and the staff could take under consideration and think about whether that would be useful to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Any further questions? Thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
Next on our list is the Golf Committee. The presenter is Bill Harris.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. Thank you for the opportunity to address this August group. We've had for those of you guys that aren't aware, golf is one of the key growth engines that happened during the pandemic, right? outdoor activity, a lot of things, one of the few activities that really people could enjoy very safely during the pandemic. And golf as an industry has boomed tremendously during the pandemic, and CA's golf courses, the two courses here, Hobbits Glen and Fairway Hills, have seen exceptional increases in volume. Hobbits has also received a great number, over 100 new members have joined. So it's been an interesting past year because of the pandemic, and also we've had the blessing of a new general manager of golf, Rodney Green, who joined us. He grew up in Columbia and joined us with a really remarkable pedigree. Rodney managed courses down in Florida that have hosted PGA Tour events. So quite an expert and really a tremendous asset to the organization. The goal is similar to, the aquatics committee goal, but the committee is broken up into myself, Rodney, the GM and director of golf, who also chairs one of our subcommittees, the House subcommittee. We'll get back to that a little bit in terms of the dealings with the clubhouse, which was newly remodeled probably about 5 years ago at Hobbits Glen. Marco DePalma is our vice chair. He runs our course committee, so the course conditions and the maintenance. He's the interface with the maintenance. Troy Fitzgerald runs our tournament committee. Golf is, the sport that hosts many tournaments. We have, we had a couple weeks ago the member guest is coming up in a couple weeks, so there are usually about a half dozen or a dozen or so tournaments that happen throughout the year to keep everyone competitive. And golf is a social sport, so we have 8 league reps, and the total committee, I believe, has roughly about 16 or 17 representatives. So it's a large group and large committee. Golf is also a sport that is, relatively traditional, right? And it's dominated by old men like myself who are very set in their ways in many ways. And so in terms of impactful accomplishments, we kind of upset the status quo in this past year by implementing a new equity-driven system regarding tee times. A lot of folks were like, hey, in the past, there are a few groups that got preferential treatment, frankly, in terms of tee times. They were always kind of on the tee sheet, or they would always be able to get, golf is played in foursomes, they would get, let's say 5 foursomes, 20 people, 20 golfers, but maybe only show up with 12 or 15 golfers. So those missing spaces were underutilized, which was a revenue opportunity that was lost in the past, and also, more importantly, prevented, other golfers, people who are walk-ons who wanted to join and go out and play, prevented them from actually being able to utilize the course. We've changed that in the last year after a series of multiple meetings, again, because of the surge in demand, rapid increase of golfers. There are just too many folks who are trying to come out and play golf to be able to say, hey, because we've done it the same way for the last umpteen years, we can continue to do that. We had to change that policy and the enforcement of that policy so we can, once again, ensure the tee sheet was optimized and also give the power back to the director of golf, Rodney Green, who, again, it's not his first rodeo. He knows how to operate golf courses and has done it at the highest level. These improved policies and enforcement procedures, particularly real quick on the enforcement, now if you, say, reserve a tee time for 4 people, but only show up with 3 people, you have to pay a small penalty, which was always in the rules. It was never enforced until now. That, stick methodology of enforcing those rules has really helped to change the dynamic in terms of providing, again, more equity and more access to the course for the members who have paid to access the course, but previously have been kind of, unable to get on because everyone's always done it the way that they've always done it. So again, greater equity, greater efficiency, and return of power to the course operator instead of the golfers who have just done it the same way forever and ever. Biggest priorities for the advisory committee for this current year is, again, it's about communication. We have to communicate with the golf community, especially at Hobbits Glen, the membership at Hobbits Glen. And again, Fairway Hills is a public course, open to the public. Anyone can come and book a time at Fairway Hills. But with Hobbits Glen, the traditionalist, it's all about communication and saying, hey, here are the policies. This is the enforcement procedures. Any questions? Let's communicate. Talk to Rodney, talk to myself, talk to Marco, the vice chair, and let's have conversations about how we're operating and make sure that it's fair for everyone. Another key component is the focus on the playability of the course, the maintenance of the course. Again, there are a lot of wonderful courses around this area, and unfortunately, people want to compare Hobbits Glen or Fairway Hills to some of the more premier courses in the area. It's an apples to oranges comparison. So again, the communication piece has been critical, but we want to continue to focus on elevating the profile of both Hobbits Glen and Fairway Hills. Fairway Hills being a gateway to a lot of folks, being a public course. They see the experience, they get to know the CA experience, and then they join so that they can play both courses. That's been a key piece. So, we're looking to make sure that the courses themselves are playing at as high of a level and are presenting to the golf community at as high of a level as possible throughout the courses. It's challenging, obviously, with Mother Nature. There's been, all kinds of, Tim Latimer talking about climate change. There have been all kinds of forces that really make the job of the superintendents, and they do a tremendous job. But Mother Nature is undefeated, just as Father Time is. And it's it's always a struggle to stay in front of all the changes in the weather. Some opportunities for the CA board to better benefit our committee. We frequently deal with issues that touch the general public. Cart pass, for example, at Hobbits Glen. Folks use them to walk their dogs and get exercise. That's a hazard, obviously, because most golfers don't hit the ball straight. We deal with that. Food and beverage has been a constant issue, again, relating to that house committee, particularly the restaurant. We need to, I think, reopen some kind of negotiation with the restaurant. And Dan Burns, I see, was cringing as I say that, but there are a lot of opportunities for, I think, better, relationships with the restaurant and the golf community. The restaurant at Hobbits Glen, called the Turn House, is there because of the golfers, but not for the golfers, right? They love the scenery, they love the ambiance there, but the restaurant is not there to serve the golfers like the previous restaurant, the Coho Grill, was. And that's caused a lot of friction. Golf tournaments bring out usually 100 or so folks, and the Turn House is not interested in serving them. So one thing that may be perhaps an option is to renegotiate the contract so that there might be a corkage fee or something like that, where the Turn House benefits, but we bring in perhaps off-site catering to actually service the golf community and the golfers that come for these tournaments 100 at a time. So that's something we can explore a little bit more. I think we need the CA board, Dan Burns and his team, Anish, who have been fantastic, to continue to have those conversations and look for a better resolution, because it's still a major point of friction. We've talked a little bit also about membership pricing and whether or not we need to change the membership offerings. Again, the surge in demand has created, frankly, too many golfers for the amount of slots. Golfers like to go out early in the morning, especially in the summer before it gets warm. It's created too much demand for the supply of golf tee times that are available. So there might be some pricing opportunities to look at there. Property damage also comes up frequently. Folks that live on a golf course feel that they're immune to property damage, like as if it's like if you live near I live near a very busy intersection. I hear horns all the time. I live near a firehouse here in Jeffers Hill, Long Reach. I hear fire sirens all the time. For some reason, people who live on a golf course don't expect to see golf balls in their yard or to be hit by golf balls. That's an issue that we need to continue to work on. We've had some discussions about moving tee boxes and those types of things as well. So it would be helpful to get some more input from CA. More importantly, though, again, with this influx of new golfers, we'd love to hear from CA about what are some other ways that we can, better integrate the new golf community, especially these guys that have come during the COVID period, into not just the golf offerings, but other offerings, that are related to Columbia Association in general. How can the board better serve the community? We've had a great relationship with our board liaison, Lynn Egan, over the past few years. So that's been fantastic. Really don't have anything more to say about that other than, we just welcome continued, involvement with the CA board as much as possible. I think there was a comment made that there isn't a board liaison anymore, but we welcome anyone's participation in our meetings and, the two-way communication between what our committee is talking about with the board as well. We would also really appreciate the continued, flow of information between CA from a strategic level down to the golfers. There's been, for example, with Fairway Hills, lots of talk over, a period of a decade or more about possibly converting Fairway Hills into, another facility or, changing the format, et cetera, et cetera. So being in the loop and having, more communication about that would certainly be a benefit to the committee so we all understand the bigger picture. So that's it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. And again, thank you so much, in particular Dan and Anish, for all your help, and to Lynn Egan, who I know is not with us right now, for all the participation. I started my my golf committee involvement, petitioning you guys for a beverage cart at Fairway Hills to sell beer. So I've come a long way from asking for a cold beer to leading this committee, and I really appreciate all the support we've gotten over the years. Thank you.
Ginny?
Yeah, so you're the guy that started that controversy at Fairway Hills, okay. Do you miss not having, or the thought of not having a board liaison then? Has it been helpful?
I think it's just been one or two meetings that we have not had a board liaison, but yeah, I would love to have, we always got good insights.
Okay, next.
We welcome it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next question or next comment. I'm very disappointed in your comments about the relationship between the golfers and the restaurant. That was true a couple of years ago. I remember our board liaison, Lynn Egan, would talk about that. And I honestly thought it had been resolved. And I guess I do not understand any business person not wanting customers and figuring a way to get more customers. So I'm at a loss. Stan, I hope we can work this out somehow. We're not servicing the golfers, but why would a businessman ever want not to get more business? I just don't get it. Okay, thank you.
Very peculiar to us also. I mean, it's literally a captive audience. You get 100 guys or gals who've just finished 4 hours and they're hungry, they're thirsty. He's not interested in, frankly, servicing, the hot dog and beer and hamburger crowd. He wants to service, and it's his prerogative. He wants to service, fine dining, consumers instead of, a bunch of sweat hogs who want a beer and a burger.
Well,
it's his prerogative, but there's a lot of opportunity still for someone to service them because that demand is there. So
well, if you have a suggestion for the board, I'd certainly be interested in hearing some creative approach. If it's not working with that restaurant, maybe some other way we can meet that need, because where you are, unless you want to go down to McDonald's, I think it's outrageous. So let's find some way of meeting that need. I just can't believe it's happening, so thanks.
Alan?
Well, Mr. Cotter, that's the first time I've ever heard golfers called sweat hogs, but anyway. So let me just ask a quick yes/no question. Was your committee consulted by the board or the staff around the question of whether there should be a board liaison to your committee?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay. Second question. You mentioned Fairway Hills and the talk of Fairway Hills being either having additional uses or, shortening it to a 9-hole course. Has your committee taken a position on that? Is this something that is under discussion at your committee? Where are you all on that question?
We have not really gone deep into discussion because, frankly, when it was bubbling up again, that's when COVID hit and the boom in golfers, really, I think, squashed that discussion. Because, Fairway Hills, of the two courses, Fairway Hills is the bigger moneymaker in terms of bottom line profit,
Okay.
Partially because Hobbits Glen obviously has a new clubhouse. The depreciation costs on that are very high. But long story short, the rising tide of COVID has brought so many golfers out there. It's been a revenue boon to both courses, frankly. So there's not been much discussion about any changes to Fairway Hills lately that I've heard of.
Okay, thanks. At least there's been some benefit to COVID. Last question, and you sort of anticipated it as well. And probably Dan could give me better actual figures, but I'm wondering from your perspective, if CA stopped having golf courses and therefore lost the revenue we get from the golf courses, but also lost the expenses that we have of maintaining them and so on and so forth, would CA lose money or gain money?
I will leave it to the financial analysts to figure out if CA would lose money or gain money, but I'll tell you, CA is committed to open spaces and community.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other better representation of open space and community, I think, as well as, the athletic issues and the health benefits of being, in community with nature than golf. So I think I think losing golf would be exceptionally detrimental to CA.
Yeah, thank you. I hear you, and I value your perspective, and you put it well. And I guess the perception out there in the community by some is that all residents, some part of our assessment subsidizes golfers who, as a group, are not sweat hogs in terms of their financial means to support themselves. So that's a perception. We can talk about it here at the board. I was just wanting to understand your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yeah, I had 2 points. Thank you for your presentation. And if the board is willing, I'm happy to be the board liaison to your committee. And the second one is, granted, this is pre-COVID, but reading that millennials, I'm trying to figure out, I read an article in one of the major newspapers that said millennials aren't golfing in the same numbers that people my age or older golf. And I wonder if there's any impact that you know of about that.
I have not seen that. In fact, I see certainly millennials are spending more time, playing video games.
Just in terms of getting people to go play golf. Yeah, is there some way we can do a better job?
I think it's about outreach. The beautiful thing about golf that people forget, literally, golf is something you can play from the time you can hold a golf club till the day you die. It's one of the few sports. I used to play basketball. I can't do that anymore. I'm going to rupture a knee or an Achilles or whatever. Golf is one of those sports that you can literally do your entire life. There are very few active sports that you can play and be competitive your entire life like golf. So it's one of those things that once you do it, most people get hooked. Most people grow up, doing other forms of golf, like mini golf. I think what Columbia is missing, frankly, is a short course. Mm-hmm. They call them pitch and putts. Mm-hmm. Very, very popular overseas, very popular in other areas of the country. You see premier golf courses and resorts like Pebble Beach, like Pinehurst, building shorter courses, big putting expanses and whatever, because it's a way to, again, build community and something simple that, it's a ball stick sport. It's fairly simple for people to, with any, iota of hand-eye coordination, to play a smaller miniaturized version of golf. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4.5 hour excursion, right? Or a very expensive excursion. So I think there are other ways to engage the community, engage different age groups, engage, more women. Joan's done a wonderful job. Joan Lovelace, the pro, has done a lovely job with her outreach to the female, women's business community as well. So you're seeing all kinds of different folks golfing. It's still certainly dominated by, older guys, older men, but there are a lot of different ways to reach golfers and increase the participation levels in golf, for sure.
Bill?
Yep. Hi, good evening. Just a couple of things bouncing off of what other folks have been saying, but I've been thinking about it this whole time. One thing I was hoping to see in your report that I didn't see was about the First Tee program. And I was wondering how that has evolved through the pandemic and how engaging the youth of our community in the golf program is progressing. And is there anything the board can do to help facilitate First Tee?
Yeah, First Tee program has been doing really well. It's based at Fairway Hills. I'm sorry, someone's coming to my front door, so you might hear a little barking. But they've sold out, and I don't know the exact number of spots, but literally the program sells out. It's just like frequently like summer camps around here. Literally they sell out. A couple minutes after midnight. All the spaces have been reserved. The program has been booming, and it's been like that for years. So the First Tee is doing exceptionally well. Just continued marketing and outreach and visibility, I think, will continue to grow that program. But it's doing great. And Don Van Duzen's done a wonderful job at Fairway Hills of growing that program in particular.
And just a quick follow-up on what Alan was speaking to. I understand the financial aspect, but if golf were to leave Columbia, in your opinion, would Columbia be a lesser community without the golf programs here that currently exist?
Without a doubt.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Next on our list is the Health and Fitness Committee, and the presenter is Jessica Rennenkampf.
Excellent. Yes, that's me. And thank you for my last name there. I am the chair of the Health and Fitness Committee. I have been for several years now. We did actually grow our committee this year despite COVID, so we're really pleased to be a little bit more diverse than we've been in years past. We are currently 13 members in addition to myself. Dick has graciously been our board liaison for the past couple of years. And our meetings are also attended by the managers of various facilities and the head of group fitness, as well as Anish and Dan. So we're pretty well represented with CA staff and a whole variety of gym users. Our two biggest accomplishments in the last year, we really helped residents regain some of their sense of normalcy with a safe return to their pre-pandemic routines. We've welcomed residents back to group fitness, to the facilities, and the gym communities they missed during the pandemic, and they did so safely. It's been really good to see both new and familiar faces at the facilities, and to rebuild for what so many, myself included, found were really cherished connections that were based solely on seeing people in the gym at the same time on the same days every week. I have friends that I would never have met otherwise that I know in the context of the facilities. And I didn't realize how important that was to me until it was taken away. So being able to get people back in the gyms and feeling comfortable and feeling safe back in their routine has been really important. And we're really glad to facilitate that for so many Columbians. Our other big accomplishment was continuing to promote the Clarabridge surveys and helping other residents see direct results from their feedback on Clarabridge. So there were two examples. There were some really consistent comments about some of the fitness classes. And so we were able to, again, through just telling people that the surveys matter and that CA listens to the surveys, CA did listen, and the group fitness program adjusted some of their class offerings and the schedules to better fit people's lives. We've also found that people have been giving really clear and concise feedback about some things that end up being really easy fixes for CA, small points of maintenance, small things to repair or replace that people might not have like felt like tracking down a manager to mention, but they fill out in the survey, hey, these mats are really old, they can be replaced, and CA is taking care of that. And it really goes to build trust with the community. The Clary Bridge surveys are being read and being, the input's being taken seriously. And of course, on the board, I know that Dan talks about it, the managers all talk about it, but for the public at large, seeing the impact of what they say in the surveys has been really important. So we're really happy to help facilitate that. Biggest priorities for the coming year, continue the return to facilities, the return to programming, and the return to special gym events. There have been some really cool things in years past. There's been goat yoga and all kinds of public meetups and things. And so really helping CA get those offerings back to draw the public back into community and to fitness and togetherness, and to being, again, even more comfortable over time to stay active in the gyms and to rebuild those routines. And I know it's hard with new COVID surges and with new variants. I know people in Howard County schools that have been impacted in the last couple of weeks who've been safe and healthy until now. But we want to continue the trend that we've been seeing over time, which is that more and more people are coming back to the facilities. The other big priority for the year is supporting CA in the facilities as we work towards improved wellness accessibility. And certainly that accessibility has been a theme in a lot of groups tonight. Thinking about our responsibility to our neighbors and how we can help CA better serve all of us in Columbia. We have started to work towards that this year with increasing some of the diversity on the board. And we are still looking to recruit new board members for the coming year. We're still looking for people that use KidSpace, since childcare and access to childcare is a huge accessibility concern for some members. Obviously, you can't work out with your kid. And so having safe childcare makes a difference in your ability to be at the gym or not. And programming people feel like they are seen and they are safe. And so working to support those initiatives on behalf of the facilities is another thing that we really want to take care of this year. In terms of better benefiting from us, you are always welcome to come to our meetings. You're also always welcome to say hi if you see me in a facility. I'm there, wave back. And to come to us via Dan or directly me or Kevin Schaefer, if you have areas where you'd like to hear from us, whether that's debating spending for the next year, whatever it is, but we are happy to provide input, where to go talk to the community on your behalf. That's what we're here for, so please feel free to reach out. To better serve us, pretty much the same thing. If there's things that are up for debate that impact the facilities, let us know so that we can help you and be informed in those things, right? So we can give you informed feedback as you consider things that affect the future of the facilities in Columbia.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? So, and I'd like to thank Dick for serving in this community. Next on our list is the International and Multicultural Committee. And the presenter is Sue DePaula.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sue DePaula, and I'm the Vice Chair of CA's International and Multicultural Advisory Committee, known as IMAC. I'm giving this report this evening because our committee chair, Laura Smith, is currently on a plane returning from California this evening. As you no doubt know, IMAC advises and assists the CA program manager for international exchange and multicultural programs, and Grace was hired in June 2021. IMAC assists with developing and running events and programs. It is also the umbrella committee for our 5 sister city committees who report to IMAC at bi-monthly meetings. During FY21, we had 21 members on our advisory committee, and we met 7 times. Our 2 most impactful accomplishments for Columbia in the last year were collaborating with county organizations on a variety of multicultural programs and developing new virtual and digital programs with several of Columbia's sister cities. Some of the county organizations we collaborated with on events and programs were the Howard County Library System, the County Executive's Office, the Columbia Mall, the East Columbia 50 Plus Center, the Howard County Center of African American Culture, the Public School System, Glenelg Country School, and Festival of the Arts. Events included a living history panel in honor of Black History Month, dance performances at the 50th anniversary of the Columbia Mall, an Asian New Year celebration, a talk by a Holocaust survivor, performances and Sister City tables at the 50th anniversary of the Long Reach Village Center, a holiday bazaar, and the monthly World Languages Cafe. Our second area of accomplishments was related to Columbia's sister cities. Despite the ongoing COVID pandemic, which has prohibited any in-person visits or exchanges, we developed 2 virtual student pen pal, also known as ePal programs, between 2 high schools here and 3 high schools in our French and Spanish sister cities. Members of our Liang China Sister City Committee recorded 2 videos in collaboration with the library. One, a Chinese dumpling cooking class, and the other, a traditional Chinese tea ceremony, which are now on the library's YouTube channel. Our Tema Ghana Committee has been working with the African Art Museum of Maryland, helping to create labels for exhibits, hosting a delegation from Uganda, and assisting at a reception for the new Ghanaian ambassador in Washington, D.C., in collaboration with Sister Cities International. Internally, at the request of Lakey Boyd, our committee members performed a detailed review of our IMAC charter, which was last reviewed in 2016. It was a useful exercise as we spent time clarifying our mission, our objectives, and our membership parameters. Together, we agreed to focus on increasing the diversity of our membership to have greater representation from the diverse cultural communities in Columbia and Howard County. Our 2 biggest priorities for IMAC this year are to continue to support the CA Program Manager for International Exchange and Multicultural Programs, and continue to develop partnerships with local, state, and national organizations to run multicultural and international events and programs for the community. Examples of programs are the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Festival at Chrysalis with the County Executive's Office in May, 3 Lakefront Summer Concert Series in collaboration with Open Space, Art Reach at the Long Reach Village Center in June with the Howard County Arts Council, Juneteenth in collaboration with the Howard County Center of African American Culture, and an event during Hispanic Heritage Month with the County Executive's Office. Other events are being planned in collaboration with the Howard County Library System and Luminous. Our second priority is to reconnect with Columbia's 5 sister cities and strengthen bonds greatly affected by the COVID pandemic. We would like to expand the ePal programs for high school students and create new ways for adults to connect virtually until in-person exchanges can resume. The Columbia Cergy Pontoise Sister City Committee is currently planning an exchange for adults from France for the spring of 2023. We would like the CA Open Space to install the Sister Cities signpost at the lakefront that was planned in fall 2019 to be installed in early 2020, but was put on hold due to the pandemic. The idea behind the signpost was to have the names of Columbia's 5 sister cities on it to increase awareness and interest in the community that Columbia has these sister cities and to increase resident participation in activities. The signpost was to be a typical Columbia Path signpost with Columbia's sister cities across the top and 5 horizontal bars for each sister city. For example, Cergy-Pontoise, France, 3,791 miles. There are several opportunities for the CA board to better benefit from IMAC's skills and expertise. We would like to continue to have a CA board liaison to IMAC to keep the board informed and to receive information from the board. It has been very helpful to have Ginny Thomas attend IMAC meetings and provide updates from the board. Thank you very much, Ginny. We would like help from the board members to facilitate communication with the 10 Columbia Village boards to increase our visibility in Columbia and our collaboration with the villages. We would like to invite board members to attend our multicultural community events to connect with our volunteers and the community at large. In response to the last question we were asked to answer, we have identified the following opportunities for the CA board to better serve our advisory committee. First, we would like the opportunity to inform the Columbia Village boards of upcoming multicultural events and programs. Secondly, we would like to collaborate with the Columbia Villages to create local events and programs. That is my report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have. If I don't know the answer, I will get you an answer soon.
Thank you, and thank you, Ginny, for serving on this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Alan?
Yeah, thank you for that. Maybe I wasn't hearing it in the past, but I was really pleased to hear, in addition to the international things you're doing, some more emphasis on diversity within Columbia as versus simply the relationship with our external international focus. I've asked for 7 years, and I'd love to get your perspective, and if you don't have one, maybe your committee's perspective. As advisory committees, it has always struck me that there's an aspect that we don't get advice on, which is how to do better around our diversity, inclusion, and equity goals here within Columbia and here at CA. And I'm wondering if that would, if we asked you as a committee to weigh in on that, to get expertise in that, to help guide us and give us advice in that, would that feel like well within your wheelhouse, or would that feel like something different and separate than what you already do?
I think we would be happy to help with that. And to that point, we are trying to increase the diversity on our committee itself, so we get different perspectives from the different cultural groups that are within Columbia. And I think we could certainly reach out to diverse groups within Howard County and perhaps help the board with these cultural and diversity issues.
Great. Well, I am your new board liaison, so I'll be happy to have that discussion.
Thank you.
That one I got right.
Sorry, what was your name?
Alan Klein.
Alan. Oh, okay, great.
Sherry?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd really like to thank you for your participation and all the people who have been involved in these committees over time. And it's been wonderful to see the expansion of the Sister Cities programs and everything that you've done to sort of keep those relationships going during this very hard period with COVID. In terms of outreach with the local village boards, there's so much history that I found out, which I didn't know until I went to France and was in Cergy-Pontoise and talked with some of our French connections there. that the history of our relationship, with Colombia's relationship with France and with the community in Spain, goes back so many years. We have lots of documentation. We have wonderful exchanges where they gave us beautiful things. We gave them beautiful things during different kinds of events. I'm sure some of this must be documented in the archives. And I was thinking that might be a really wonderful thing for you guys to present at the village board level to reinvigorate some of this thinking about how we go forward in the future. It's really a very powerful history. So again, thank you.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I will certainly present that to the committee and to our chair, Laura Smith, and see if we can put together something specifically on Cergy-Pontoise, because I just happen to be the chair of the Cergy-Pontoise Sister City. My husband and I have hosted a couple from France, and we have been hosted in return by them. So I think it is a fabulous program, and I would love to present the history of that relationship.
That's great. Thank you.
Bill? Good evening. Just two quick questions. I so love the idea of the signpost for the sister cities, but I was wondering what your opinion would be to put the distances in not only miles but kilometers to keep this as an international thing.
You radical, you.
I was thinking furlongs.
It's important to me. I think that would be good. So,
I would have no problem with that as long as nothing has already been fabricated and then it would require a lot of money to change.
Right.
But
Bill will pay for it.
I'll get up there with my chalk. There you go. I'll be calculating it out. I'm an engineer. That's what we do.
Okay.
The second quick question. With the upcoming World Cup starting in November, I believe at least three of our sister cities have countries participating in that. And have we planned any events around that as far as a cultural sports kind of focus at all?
We have as far as I know, we have never done anything related to sports. We've had cooking exchanges, we've had art exchanges, but sports is something that we have never really looked into. So that might be an idea that I can take back to the committee.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next committee is the Millennial Advisory Committee, and the presenter is Colin Sullivan.
Hello. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Well, I'm Colin Sullivan. Thank you to the board for this space tonight. I've been serving as the vice chair for the CA Millennial Advisory Committee and happy to share on behalf of our committee. So we have really been having conversations on topics that are deeply on the forefront of millennials' minds in Columbia and across Howard County. We were able to actually meet with Councilwoman Christiana Rigby earlier, or actually in mid-2021, on the issue of affordable housing. As it turned into a conversation into a lack of new construction and the need for housing types to create equitable opportunities for younger residents of Columbia and Howard County to find housing. This work actually positioned us well to be a part of the HOCO by Design initiative from Howard County government for the general plan, and also provide our feedback in that capacity as well. In a more programmatic sense, we were able to work with CA staff and we proposed a new idea for events for particularly millennials that was of interest. So we had the CA Midnight Mini Golf Series, which was so successful that it's now running every second Friday between May and October. That's a night, again, geared specifically towards millennials and younger residents to have programming just for them. So some of the priorities that we're looking for this upcoming year, I think what you're going to hear is some of the challenges that we have been facing and what we're hoping to do over the course of the next year is not atypical from other committees, as we're looking largely for recruitment of trying to get new members, particularly more diverse members with more flexible means of engagement. We serve 18 to 35-year-olds, so these are folks that are either going into college, coming right out of college. Some of them have established families, have established careers. So this is an interesting age group that we are composed of and trying to navigate exactly where we all fall and what we would like to be able to accomplish. So as we look towards how we can get support from the CA board, we look at ourselves as millennials in the community that are involved, that we want to support our neighbors, and we want to be able to disseminate information about CA in general and CA activities in any way that we can do that. And sometimes we've almost felt either left behind or playing catch up in a way that we aren't able to effectively do that. So being able to have some kind of robust conversation and ongoing relationship between the board to be able to proactively get that information so that we can share it with our neighbors that are our peers, so that people that are our age have an opportunity to meaningfully get involved in the community. I think that we have learned in our committee that there are people that are in our age group that want to get involved, that care about CA, that care about Columbia, that care about our programs, but they just don't know what they don't know. And because of that, find not a great way to be involved and co-create our community. So we hope that we can be kind of the liaison, not only between CA and the CA board, but also to our younger residents and neighbors. So that was really brief, but those are kind of my remarks for tonight.
Thank you. And the board also would like to thank Jess Duvall for serving as your liaison. Do we have any questions? Thank you for your time. Next committee is the Senior Advisory Committee, and the presenter is Sharon Lee Vogel.
Your mute's working really well, Sharon Lee.
Muted.
I have to unmute. Well, my great opening remark was that I'm representing the other end of the spectrum from Colin because I represent the Senior Advisory Committee. So the other end, we want to bring those thoughts, needs, and wants to the attention of the CA board, which we have over the years. And we thank you for the opportunity to come tonight and speak. We appreciate Jenny being our liaison. She's always at our meetings, bringing us news, keeping us informed, and working with us. Our primary purpose is to make recommendations to CA, its staff, and to you, the board. And we will continue to provide recommendations on how CA can enhance its programs and facilities to better serve the rapidly growing 50-plus demographic in Columbia. Several things began in the SAC. We introduced and then advocated for pickleball to CA. The village in Howard got its start in the Senior Advisory Committee, and will continue to identify things that are particularly interesting or beneficial to seniors here in Columbia. We continued during the pandemic to meet via Zoom, with frequently having speakers, which informed the members so that they could take the word out to their neighbors and networks. And we resume in-person meetings next month, June. The plan is to again hold our meetings at various CA facilities so that the committee sees firsthand what is available, which enables each of us to take and make recommendations out there to our networks, and also to comment on CA about how that particular facility is beneficial to seniors or needs some improvement. One of the projects we're working on is to have and develop Walk Columbia, aiming particularly at seniors, but to make it also multi-generational. And we were going to advocate to start that this spring, but we got knocked down by one of our members who was spearheading it when she developed COVID. So we're going to work with Dan to do it either this fall or next spring. We'd also like to meet with Miss Boyd this summer to introduce her to the Senior Advisory Committee. We are working with CA and Howard County to ensure that Columbia is part and very prominent in the age-friendly community designation that Howard County is working to get and its implementation. One of the things we'd like to do, and this is the last piece, is to suggest either combined meetings or maybe once a year have a representative from the CA Senior Advisory Committee also meet with people from other committees such as Health and Fitness and Aquatics, because a lot of seniors are very interested in health and fitness and very interested and can use very easily the aquatics. And we would like to see, and I'm not sure how CA can improve this because it's an ongoing issue and has been so for decades, getting the word out about what the programs are, particularly for seniors and mature adults. And that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Alan?
Yeah, hi Sharon Lee, Alan Klein.
Yes, Alan.
Back in 1972, when my parents first moved to the Columbia area, they were 49. And they were quite tickled to learn that the next year when they turned 50, they weren't going to have to pay overdue library fines because they were considered too senile to remember to return their books on time. So my question to you is, you mentioned 50 plus. I'm really wondering, the serious part of my question, and I don't need necessarily an answer from you right now, but it strikes me that the needs of 50 to 60, 65 plus year olds may be very different than the needs of 65, 70, 75, 80-year-olds. And I'm just wondering if that age range might be too wide, or might be just representing different. And you used the term mature adults, but that just I'm just wondering about that. My question
It's
for
very interesting that you raised that question, because going back, I guess about maybe 15 years ago, the Senior Advisory Committee held focus groups in East Columbia and West Columbia. And we had 2 on each side, and we divided it into 2 different groups. People who were 50 to 65 and people who were 65 and older, to find out, did they have different needs, wants, and desires from CA? And it turned out they didn't. But I think it would be a good idea to do that again, to see what the difference is, because the senior population 60 and over has grown significantly in Columbia since then.
Absolutely.
So if I can get support from the CA board to do the focus groups again, that would be wonderful.
Great.
Thank you for planting the seed to the entire board for me.
Well, that's right, and I appreciate your look at the data. The other thing I would say to my colleagues is it's just struck me now, and it sort of hit me at the end of the last presentation. Millennials is a generation. At some point, millennials are going to be seniors. So do we really mean millennials, or do we mean people from 18 to 30 or 35, whatever?
35,
what do we
35.
mean? And then we got to stop calling it the Millennial Committee, because oldest millennials are over 40 right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've always pointed out, because I served on the State Commission on Aging, I served on the Howard County Commission on Aging for 15 years. And one of the things I've always pointed out is you start aging the instant you're born.
I noticed that.
Bill? Hi, Shirley. It's Bill Santos.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
And I'll just put the plug in now. If we're going to start throwing generations around, as a Generation X person, I'm more than happy to throw us in here. We need to be represented. Let's get that done. Anyway, my question to you relates to your statement about looking to work with other advisory groups and committees. And I thought, as the liaison to the Millennial Committee, I think it would be great if we could get the seniors and the millennials together to discuss common things that they need from CA, common things they think CA could do better, and hopefully we can work to do that. Do you think the Senior Advisory Committee would be open to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I think that one of the things that I have not only grandchildren, but I have great-grandchildren now. And it's very interesting that my grandchildren and I relate much better to each other than our children.
Wow. Okay. All right, that's all I
And
had.
now you know the secret of why grandkids get along so well with their grandparents. We ignore those people in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Jenny, for serving on this committee.
Anytime.
Next, we have the Teen and Middle School Advisory Committee, and the presenter is Lauren Sims.
Hi, I'm Lauren Sims. Oh, there's the video. I'm the president of the Teen Advisory Committee, and I was just going to go through the questions that were asked. So the most impactful accomplishments for the Teen Advisory Committee this year was when I started and joined in December, there were 0 members because many of the members had graduated during the COVID years. And with not many opportunities for the Teen Advisory Committee, there wasn't much growth in the committee. So I'm proud to say that we have over 30 members in our committee. And one of our biggest accomplishments is that we've had this program with Supreme, and I've been working with Dan and Tavia to have this End the Year Strong program specifically for middle schoolers. And so we have access to one of the basketball courts and then the seating area next to the gym. And so we're offering a space where teens can themselves get service hours, which we need to graduate and often to meet the needs for our National Honor Societies and such, to volunteer and help with community. And so we offer tutoring, we have activities and games, and play basketball with all the middle schoolers in Columbia. And so we just had our second week on Wednesday, and we've had 10 kids total and 5 volunteers that have regularly come and helped. And it's been really great. It's been really nice to see everybody. We've had people from all age ranges and even some kids from elementary school who just happened to stop by and play basketball with us. And it's been really great. And so our priorities in the future is to really grow the committee from our slow starts in the beginning, because right now most of the students are from Atholton, from my school, because, word of mouth and spreading that around. But I think for the future, it would be really great to have like a member from each of the schools, the high schools and middle schools in Columbia, to really get that diverse point of view on what their needs are from their schools, because that may be really different from what students at Atholton may need. And so just having a board would really be great for the committee. And then also just to provide volunteer opportunities and community events for the teens in Columbia who really had the 2 years of high school taken away from them during COVID. And just range of community opportunities from like sports, academics, technology, and art to really explore with their interest and something that they may not necessarily get at their high school. And so for the CA board to help the Teen Advisory Committee, I think what we best need right now is connections to the high schools and middle schools to really let them know what opportunities are available with the teen committee and what opportunities that we're hosting for the middle schoolers and elementary schoolers in their community. And then for what we can do to help the CA board is really the Teen Advisory Committee is a bunch of teens that are really willing to help and provide for the community with our skills and our team perspective on what Columbia may need in the future and how they can best provide for us. And yes, I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Are you going to be the liaison?
I'm going to be the new liaison for the Teen Advisory Committee. And thank you for your presentation. And we'd also like to thank Tina Horn for working with the Teen Advisory Committee last year. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next on our committee is the Tennis Committee, and the presenter is Leo Bruette.
Well, good evening. It is getting to be evening. Greetings. to Miss President Boyd, the returning board members, and the new board members. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version since we're almost 3 hours in. I will say this, tennis community, it's all based on the facilities that CA maintains. We've got Hobbits Glen, the Hartrue courts. We've got the indoor courts at the Columbia Athletic Club. There is the Wild Lake Tennis Club, hard courts. Owen Brown Tennis Club, hard courts, and the Long Reach Tennis Center, which is indoor hard courts. With that said, we can tell you that the participation in the tennis community has reached an 8-year high, according to the records that we've got. To give you some sense of that, what's known as check-in usage for the year just ended is around 33,000 check-ins, as compared to 24, 25, 26,000 in the 3 previous years. That's pretty significant. That's up between 25 to 30% over those years. With all those facilities we've got out there, we are using them, which is the point. What we want to do is continue to keep that usage going. I will say to you, one of the delicious ironies of all this usage is we've got locked gate and limited times to use these facilities. I'm not going to get into details necessarily. We're looking to work it out. I do know Miss Boyd has, she's gotten letters from at least two of the senior players that I know about why we ought to think about revisiting whatever policies we have in place. It's all about just simply using the courts and being available. We would like to really recruit some newer members onto the committee for the year, especially some younger folks necessarily. But the reality is, if you go look at participation in USTA leagues, it's skewed much more to age 40 and older than it is younger. Now, I'm saying get some younger people in there. I'm going to be 75. So I suppose someone who's 45 could be one of my kids. So I'll take that on the committee. Nonetheless, that's what we're looking to do. I will be another committee that pitches for having a board liaison. For several meetings we had with Andy Stack, I thought it was helpful to have him there. Most recent meeting, Eric was there. He got an earful about the locked gates discussion, as it were. Aside from that, I will simply say to you that tennis is all about recreation and socialization. And the punchline, as far as I'm concerned, is relax, enjoy, and be kind. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation, and I would love to serve as your honorary liaison. And thank you, Andy, for serving on this committee. Yeah, I do have.
Terrific.
I do have. I'll start with that, Alan.
Yeah, hi, Leo, Alan Klein.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the other, I think it was the golf group. Was your committee, to your knowledge, consulted when the board made the decision to abandon a board liaison to your committee?
No.
Okay. My second question is, have you all made up with the pickleball people, or is that still an
It's
ongoing
interesting,
issue?
Alan. We had a pickleball board member who left the committee because he became CA staff. And the follow-on to that was, oh, we'll get one of the other pickleball folks to join the committee. There is no pickleball person on the committee per se right now. Although I can tell you, 2 of the regular tennis players on the committee also play pickleball, so all is not lost. I would say that the community has settled down from the previous several years, not the least of which I think everybody understands. If you're going to use a Columbia facility like the Owen Brown pickleball courts or you're going to play pickleball in Long Reach, you need to be a CA member, or you need to go in on a CA guest pass. And also that when you use the facilities in the wintertime, the Long Reach facility, well, you know, the court fees that you'll have for pickleball are going to be the same as the court fees that the tennis folks play. Now everything is settled down where most every time I'm over to Owen Brown, you know, in Saturday mornings, things like that, and other mornings, there's a full complement of pickleball players having at it over on those couple of courts. And I understand from Manish that there's a significant pickleball activity at Long Reach during the winter months. And I think that's all you can really ask for is participation. We're getting it.
Great. Thank you, Leo.
Leo, I'm going to volunteer Dick's wife to be on the pickleball, as a pickleball representative.
Hey, it works for me.
I'll talk to her.
Okay. I do have one question. Given all the additional tennis playing, if we added more hours to the courts, especially to Hobbits, would all those slots be filled, in your opinion?
Well, Eric, you heard this already because you were at the meeting last week. You know, there's several groups. Well, Dave Thompson's group's got about 120 names on the distribution list, and
Wow.
Rich Wachterman, John Wade have got another group of about 70. Dave is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Rich and John are Tuesday and Thursday. And historically, when these guys have signed up at Hobbits Glen, Dave typically populates 5 to 6 courts at a clip, and John and Rich tend to do about 4 courts at a clip. So the answer is, we know the old population is out there that likes those soft courts because it is kind to your knees and your hips and all that good stuff. Yes, I think we would go ahead and use the courts, no question about it. All right, let me be clear. Right now, the weather is nice, so mostly folks want to play outdoors from, I would say, 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Very pleasant. I'll be candid also. By the time you get to July, when you're talking about 90 degrees, that sort of thing, you're going to see everybody in there wanting to play between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the use of the courts by the USTA leagues. I mean, that's the league participation has exploded so much that not only are the old guy leagues and old girl leagues playing over at Hobbits Glen, but some of the regular leagues also. So it's, I think with the participation going up the way it's been going, yes, I think I can say in the affirmative, we would use the courts.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you for your time. And the last committee is the Watershed Committee, and the presenter is Deborah Wessner.
Good evening, everyone, or should I say good night? Congratulations to the new members. Welcome to late night. And congratulations to those members who have extended their tenure and bring all of CA history with them. Thank you so much for serving on the CA board. I'd like to introduce those of you who are new to the members of the Watershed Committee. Owen Brown has Ed Warner. Harper's Choice has Carolyn Cradler. Oakland Mills has Bob Marietta. Dorsey Search has Janine Grossman. River Hill has Kara Heilweil. King's Contrivance has Kate Riley. Wild Lake has Susan Tucker. Town Center has Bob Moynihan and John Klein. Long Reach has Mandy Elder, and Hickory Ridge gets me. Thank you, Mr. England, for introducing me to the Watershed Committee. Brian used to be the chair, and then he passed it on. To answer the questions that you posed to us, and Lakey, thank you for making them 4 concise questions. The 2 most impactful accomplishments in Columbia for the last year were that our committee created an introductory letter and a set of recommendations on how each of the village RACs could adapt to new low-impact landscaping, which was HB 322 in the state. And with input and support from state and local environmental experts, we shared our recommendations with every village board, and it was up to them and their advisory committees at the local level to determine which things they might wish to implement. Our village representatives also founded, led, and coordinated with other village environmental groups. And the result was that we have 3 new environmental groups established in the last year at King's Contrivance, Harper's Choice, and Owen Brown, and related groups who already existed in Wild Lake, Hickory Ridge, River Hill, Oakland Mills, and Long Reach. So most of our villages are covered in terms of people who are interested in the environment and who spend their time working with their local boards to come up with programs and projects that are important to the community. Each of these groups work independently. We do not try to force anyone to do anything the same. However, we share at each of our monthly meetings activities that are going on in each village so that we can copy from one another unabashedly and learn from one another what things work and what things don't. Our 2 biggest priorities for the current year are to support and continue our communication with those village environmental groups and residents, especially as it pertains to new and ongoing stormwater mitigation efforts. These sometimes arise at the Columbia level, sometimes even at the Howard County level, and we try to make sure that people are aware of them, understand what their purpose is, understand what it will contribute to their well-being and the value of their properties. The second thing we'd like to do is increase resident understanding of invasive and native plants, very similar to what you heard in Tim's presentation. Yards Alive. We also have CARES groups in the communities and watershed advisory communities in the local area. And we coordinate it with the Weed Warriors and the Pull and Plant Projects and Adopt a Spot. In fact, this last year we had a group called Weed Warriors on Wheels that started in Long Reach, and they challenged each of the other villages to do the same thing. And that is, during the winter, we went through open space with certified weed warriors and cut down a lot of the vines that were invasive and were crawling up the trees, hopefully preserving the trees for a long time within the community. How can we benefit from the advisory committee's skills? We would like CA board members to meet with us and leaders of the village environmental groups and to join in some of our activities. We think that you'll learn from the activities. We think you will help spread the word. Other residents in your environment understand collective and individual village efforts to work with the watershed. We'd also like to have improved communication with the Sustainability and Climate Change Advisory Committee. As you know, we do have 2 members of our committee, John Klein and Bob Marietta, who serve on the Climate Change Advisory Committee and who share with us during our meetings things that are of mutual importance. How can we benefit from the board? Well, first of all, we were not asked about a change to relieve us of the help of our board member, and Jerry Zarrett has been fantastic in keeping us up to date with what's going on in the board, as well as what's going on in Howard County, because she stays involved in a lot of different committees outside of CA. So we learn about a lot of things from Jerry's attendance at our meetings. We would like to be able to have continued board presence. It doesn't have to be just Sherry. If she's busy some night, maybe someone else would like to take her place. And we are continuing to meet right now by Zoom. And we'd like any feedback on the board views of how the investment in watershed projects in the past has gone. What are your views of how much you've spent on watershed projects and how well they have worked out? It would also be helpful to understand future funding for not just watershed projects, but other environmental projects so that we can coordinate, again, with climate change and advisory, but any other committees where there are things that are going on that are near or on a watershed. It would also be helpful if board representatives from each village would communicate with their WAC representative if they become aware of watershed issues in the village so that we can ensure these are raised as potential projects for future budgets. We know not everything will go in one budget, but rather than leave it to staff, always have to come up with great ideas of what needs to be done in your village. It would help if you hear of things that are going on in your village where there's a water problem, let us know. Maybe we can go take a look at it and see if it's worthy of being brought up as a project for the board. I'd like to thank you all for staying here tonight and waiting for the last presentation, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, and thank you, Sherry, for working on this committee. Are there any questions?
Brian is in.
Brian?
Yes, Deborah, I want to thank you very much for what you're doing on the committee. That's wonderful. You know, you shouldn't put out an invite like you just did about what works and what doesn't work, and that's something I'm really interested in. I did have one question of whether you felt that how much you got involved in getting community input, especially in regards to the Long Reach project. Was that something that your committee was really involved in?
Yes, our committee was involved. We did send letters of recommendation to the, first of all, to the board. We also sent something to the Army Corps of Engineers and MDE with regard to the project. We have heard what Ms. Boyes has had to say, as well as Ms. Bennett. We don't think that that's necessarily all the information, but we'd also like to share, and we think the board already knows this, that a lot was learned in the first major project in Wild Lake about how to approach things and how to get things done. One of the big problems with a large project like this is it doesn't happen overnight. You can't just inform people and then make it happen. It happens over 3 to 5 years before you even get started. And during that period of time, people forget if they went to an original meeting that told them about a project, what things were going to happen and what things weren't going to happen. And then when things start to happen, get very upset. We had a lot of upset that happened up in the Harper's Choice Wild Lake area when that project was going on, because people didn't know there were going to be a lot of trucks, and they didn't know that trucks were going to be coming down their pathways. They thought all the trees would be preserved. They didn't realize that some of them would be cut down. What CA learned, what CA staff learned out of this is they need to involve other people as they begin a project like this. They need to get people in who are environmentally sensitive about birds, trees, old trees, what type of environment you want to put in. And I think that CA is applying this next project. They intend to have their arms around WSSI and not letting them just go willy-nilly and do whatever they want to do. But it still needs to be approved. Brian, you know, you're from Hickory Ridge. What our committee did in terms of recommending that we move ahead with this project was in consternation with our own board at the time, because Hickory Ridge's board voted against it. So, good question, who needs to be involved? I think that it's important each of the villages that is directly involved walk the project, understand what's going on and understand what can't happen because people will not all put in mitigation factors in their own backyard. We will try to convince them to put in native plants, rain gardens, rain barrels, any type of mitigation that will keep the water on their property. It won't always happen in people's backyards. And that's when you have to do something to collect the water and assure that you're not going to continue to dump it all into Lake Elkhorn.
Thank you. Any further questions? Sherry.
Thank you.
If somebody else has a question. Oh, okay, thank you. Thanks, Deborah. I really appreciate being able to work with you guys over time, and I will be continuing to do that over this next year as the liaison. You bring up a very interesting point about Walk the Project. I think one of the really interesting things that the Watershed Advisory Group did was actually walk through with John McCoy several older projects that were done 10 years ago and 5 years ago. It was a brutally hot day. We were out there traipsing through the underbrush, but it was very, very revealing in terms of the how nature comes back when you do projects well, and how in so many places it was really impossible to tell that there had been a major project done. It looked so natural. So I guess my question is, during this upcoming year, do you think it would be advisable to make some of those kinds of walks available to people in the community, not only board members who I think would be interested, but also folks in the communities who might want to see what this actually looks like down the road?
It would be very helpful. I think also producing videos, and I know John has already produced at least one video show development of projects over a period of time. I think it's important to have those available, but I would advise the board, you cannot just post these on your website and assume people will come. You have to send out links so that people can just click on it and get to it. It has to be short so that people will have their attention span, well, let's say, by what the project is. I think, Sherry, it's a good idea, getting people out there, but it's going to be difficult to get the people that you want. And I think it's important to listen to our residents. Ms. Boyes, Ms. Bennett bring up points, but I think they need to be refuted carefully and cohesively by the staff so that everyone gets a good feel for what it is and people don't have their heads turned left and right based on whoever's at the table that day.
Thank you.
I have.
Alan?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the work you all do, and I appreciate your emphasis on making sure people are informed and looking at this from all perspectives factually. Only other thing I want to say is, since his name has come up a couple of times already, and apropos of our earlier discussion on nepotism, as far as I know, John Klein is not related to me at all.
He is a civil engineer, though, and he does understand his stuff.
This is good.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and I'd like to thank all the presenters tonight. So some of the next steps at the next work session, we'll have an opportunity to discuss and possibly modify the charges. The charges all appear in your packet for today's meeting, and at the following meeting on June 23rd, there'll be a vote to accept the charges. So next on the agenda is the questions only section. Do we have any questions for the questions only section of the agenda?
Ginny did. Didn't you have a question for Lakey?
Good.
Somebody did. No, somebody did. Wasn't me.
What?
She asked.
You asked it during residents' meeting.
Yeah.
So, okay, no questions. Proposed new topics. Do we have any proposed new topics?
Yeah.
Ginny.
Actually, it's a carryover from the one in March and April, and that is when will we get a copy of the MOU agreement with Howard Hughes and the Columbia Association at the downtown, the lakefront, the medical building, and how we're going to coordinate so that any music events that they have at the medical building balcony will not interfere with something that CA has planned for the lakefront. We discussed it in March. I withdrew that motion to make an amendment to the easement because I was guaranteed that within 10 days we would get a copy of an MOU agreement. And I keep raising it. I'm getting bored with raising it. And I'm sure you're getting bored with hearing it.
We are still in negotiations.
No, I sent an email today, Jenny.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I can recap it now. So.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know when the email was sent.
First, I think the key is that we had staff both look at the minutes as well as go back and review the video, and there was no commitment to respond in 10 days. So I do have to say that is inaccurate. But I will say that what staff agreed to was just like every other easement process, when you approve it and add a condition, which in this case the MOU is a condition of approving the easement, staff then proceeds with executing what your condition was. So there was nothing in the process that would actually bring that back to the board. That is not a normal part of the process. And then the second part from the timing is that we made no commitment in the meeting, and part of it is to implement something like that means that technical staff and our attorney, and then the recipient has their technical staff and their attorney, and that takes quite some time, and it's not executed yet because the easement is not executed yet. So just from a process perspective, I think that's probably important to understand.
Well, I thought what we had agreed to, this would not be part of the easement, but would be a separate one-pager. I was kind of hoping where they'd say, we'll coordinate with you over entertainment every year on such and such a time before we schedule and before you schedule. I mean, I guess I thought it was rather simple to do. I guess not.
Is that a question? So it's being coordinated between CA and Howard Hughes as the board requested.
Okay.
And that's the update. I guess I'm not understanding what you think you're not getting.
I understood, and you're saying I didn't understand it correctly, that whatever it was would come back to the board. And you're saying that's not correct. Is that what you're saying? The board would actually see the results of what it requested. That's what I was saying.
I am saying that just like in every other process, we are executing it based on what the board told us to do, and we do not normally bring that back to the board. As far as I understand it from both the Office of the General Counsel as well as Community Development and Real Estate Services, we have not brought something like that back to the board again because you told us what you wanted in it, and that's what we're executing. I mean, it's operational once you approve it.
Well, I thought we were promised we'd see it, so, okay.
Could I ask a related?
Any further proposed new topics?
Now, if I could have a related question to that, just I'm new to this issue, so am I understanding correctly that what Ginny's asking about is not an existing MOU, but an MOU that's in process? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other topics? Finally, chair's remarks. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and I know it's been a fairly long night for all of us, but I do have two things I'd like to observe. One thing, looking back to our first meeting, it's clear that we need to get a better handle over our policies and procedures. And it's just looking at that meeting, that's something that we need to have a better grasp on. And it's something we need to also look for ways to improve them so that we can be more proactive going forward. So one of the things I'd like to do is set up a task force to look at that. And so if you're interested in working on this topic, please email me. The second thing that I think we should look at is the board's overall strategy and the board's strategic goals. And this is just like the policy and procedures. I think this is also an important thing for us to look at this year. And again, if you're interested in exploring this topic on a task force, please email me also.
Clarifying, so are you saying that a task force will develop our strategy for this year?
The board's strategic strategy. So this is from a board level, not the CA level. This is
Wouldn't that be the whole board having that conversation?
Well, the idea would be we have people that are interested, work on the details, and then they can come back and present to the board, and we can have that board discussion. If you're interested, email me.
I think that should be a full board discussion. It's not a matter of being interested or not interested. It's a matter of the whole board needs to.
The whole board will weigh in on it. Just like the whole board will weigh in
you, Janet, that
the whole board.
That's the board thing to do.
Alan?
I'm not clear, Janet. In the past, we've often had a small task force that gets together, makes some suggestions back to the board.
Actually, if you look at our policies and procedures, we actually had a strategy committee. If you go back far enough, and when he's looking at the...
Is the key term there. I think in the past few years, we've had full board conversations, which are much more robust than three people sitting in a corner coming up with what they think should be the direction of the board.
I'm with you on that we need to have those discussions, absolutely. I guess I'm not as sure that of the pros and cons of having some people sort of tee it up and do some advanced thinking.
And at least be able to consider the nitty-gritty, because if you get too many people, it becomes unwieldy.
Not if it's facilitated properly.
Sherry has a...
Sherry?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the idea is to try to get the board to move more quickly to get the president, the staff, and the board in alignment about specific goals and objectives for the year. So it's not the broad strategic planning, which we have a document for, but it's looking at what are some specific focuses for the board for the upcoming year. And I think the recommendations would be suggestions for a couple of things that the board could really focus on. It doesn't preclude anything else being suggested, but I think it will move. I think the idea of having a smaller committee is that it would move more quickly to be brought to the full board if it's focused in that kind of way.
Dick?
As I understand it, this would be kind of a draft proposal that you could use as a basis for further discussion. Sometimes it helps to jumpstart something by having a committee, as we have on many occasions, have a committee put together some ideas, draft something, and present it to the board for discussion.
I'd point out we had a committee for the MBE program. Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking back to last year. We had a nice retreat at the pavilion at Lake Elkhorn where basically all the board members threw out some ideas. We then kind of consolidated those and came up with just some broad topics, and then you can go on further. But I got to agree with Janet that I think you want something like that to give it a start. And then if later, you need a little focus, because that way the whole board was involved. Everybody got to toss out ideas. And then right then and there, you kind of narrowed it down and said, okay, we've got these 4 things we'd like to work on.
And I definitely like the idea of a board retreat, and thank you, Alan and Andy, for volunteering to help make that happen. Jenny?
Yeah, just on the first one, Policy and Procedures Task Force. We already said at the last meeting after we got the policy book, we were told that there's conflict in other procedures. And so if you get a task force or subcommittee going on that, of people that are interested in working on that, and come back to the board with recommendations, and actually even the other board members could say, I really want you to look at a certain policy we have now, a certain procedure. You do have the book, but you also have experience, or some do, with the way the board is functioning or has been functioning in terms of some procedures. So what changes do you want, or what do you like, what don't you like, what suggestions? And that would go to the committee, they'd come back with a draft. I don't see how you're going to do that with the agendas we have on a whole board meeting on just that one alone. It just makes more sense to do it that way and get something done in a short period of time. You don't want to be functioning if you should be changing the way you are operating. You don't want to be functioning for months before you get anything done.
Bill?
No, I wouldn't confuse the issue. I think that it's a good idea to have a task force for policies and procedures, because they exist. I think strategy, I think there's merit to getting all of us together.
Could we take one thing at a time, then? Maybe anybody have any problems with policies and procedures?
I don't know about you guys. I had fun tonight. I'm looking forward to getting together with everybody and talking strategy. That'd be great.
So it sounds like the direction of the board is that we should definitely set up a retreat where we can focus on policy, on strategy and goals. And thank you again for volunteering to help out with that. And we'll focus on setting up a policy and procedures subcommittee. So if you're interested in participating on that committee, please email me.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're referencing communication has happened about scheduling a retreat, and I just wanted to make sure you're aware. I am on the board of directors, and I haven't received any of that information. So I just want to make sure that I'm included in that.
Definitely. So.
I haven't received it either.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
basically, it hasn't been scheduled.
I'm sorry, you were referencing volunteering. People have already volunteered, so I thought there was a communication. I'm sorry.
No, they just volunteered. Well, I don't think they thought they just volunteered, but.
I didn't volunteer.
Okay.
But if anyone else is interested in helping out on the retreat, again, email me. That being said, can I have a motion to adjourn?
In terms of the new topics, I'm going
Or past
despite that Bill had fun tonight, I'm going to renew my thought that I think having all of our advisory committees show up on the same night makes it feel like a cattle call, and it's hard to keep them separate, and it's hard to really give them the focus that they need. My preference would be to have one a month. We can give them more focus, stagger them out. We can, I think that would be more useful to them and more useful to us. So I'd love to see us think about that. And I'm also hearing that we had some, I wasn't part of it, so I'm not going to characterize it in any way, but it sounds like there are some advisory committees that would want to have board liaisons that don't right now. And
Nothing is preventing them.
No, in fact, I think we already have 3 unofficial liaisons, and if anybody wants to be the unofficial liaison to the health committee, there's a slot open.
Health and fitness, I've been doing that. I'm quite happy to continue.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we've got them all.
We've got them all.
Yeah, in response to Alan, Alan, I understand what you're saying, but the whole process here is that the year for the advisory committee starts May 1st. So you just get a new board on, say, or new board members. The committees have certain responsibilities to tell us what they want to do for the year. Therefore, you really have to hear that in May, and you're ready, starting late, and then you have to approve it as soon as possible, and this will be June 23rd. Maybe in the future we can move it up to June 9th, or but the other thing you're talking about, I think, makes sense in terms of if a committee says, I really want to talk to the board about something, and you just schedule that on the agenda. That's really an important issue for that committee.
I hear you. All I'm saying is that
it's our structure that says everybody's year starts May 1st. I know that's our fiscal year, but these advisory committees, advice doesn't have a fiscal year. Advice could happen anytime.
Okay,
And we could have each committee's year be different. And part of my concern that I didn't say is that, given that our first meeting in May is a operational get organized, and then if our second meeting in May is all about advisory committees, and then we don't have any meetings in August, that's 2 months where we don't have any work, substantive work that we're doing. And I'm not dissing the advisory committees, I just think they could be spread out and we could be doing other kinds of work.
I see.
in and around.
Thanks. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Can I just, I'm not clear on this. We have, do we have a group that's going to put together a group retreat?
So right now I've got 2 volunteers. If I can get some more volunteers, I think everybody would appreciate it.
That's to set up a retreat.
To set up a retreat.
Okay.
And my goal would be to have it sometime in June, and the earlier the better.
Okay. And do we have a subcommittee to work on policy, or is that to be determined? I didn't catch all.
Policy and procedures.
Yeah.
On policy and procedures. And who's on that?
If you're interested, just send me an email by next week.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
Janet moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
I thought you were
Adjourned.